Rain hammered the glass doors of Mercy General so hard it sounded like gunfire. Elena Carter had worked night shifts long enough to know the difference between panic and danger. Panic was a mother running barefoot into the ER with a feverish child in her arms. Panic was a drunk college boy bleeding from his eyebrow, laughing because he was too scared to cry. Danger was silence. And at 2:17 inches the morning, the emergency room went silent. Every monitor kept beeping. Every fluorescent light kept buzzing. Every nurse kept breathing. But no one moved. Elena looked up from the chart in her hands as the automatic doors slid open. 3 men entered first. Black suits, wet shoulders, cold eyes. Not police. Not hospital security. Behind them, 2 more men pushed in a gurney with the kind of urgency that did not ask permission. Water dripped from their coats onto the sterile white floor. Blood followed in thin, dark lines. On the gurney lay a man dressed in black. His shirt was soaked through. His skin was pale beneath the sharp shadows of his face. Dark hair clung to his forehead. One hand hung over the side of the stretcher, blood running between his fingers and dropping steadily onto the floor. Drip, drip, drip. Elena's body moved before her fear could stop her. Trauma Bay 1, she ordered. No one answered. She turned. Now. That snapped the room awake. The men in suits did not step aside. They watched every doctor, every nurse, every movement, as if the entire hospital had become their battlefield. Dr. Reeves rushed in, tying his mask behind his head. What happened? One of the men looked at him. Gunshot wounds, he said. Dr. Reeves swallowed. We have to call the police. The man's expression did not change. No. The word dropped into the room like a loaded weapon. Elena felt the air tighten. Dr. Reeves hesitated, and that hesitation was enough to make Elena's stomach turn. She stepped between them, gloved hands already reaching for trauma scissors. This is a hospital, she said, cutting open the man's blood-soaked shirt. He's bleeding out. Argue later. One of the guards moved toward her. The unconscious man's hand shot up. It happened so fast, Elena almost screamed. His fingers closed around her wrist. Hard. Not weak. Not dying. Commanding. His eyes opened. Dark, focused, terrifying. For 1 second, the entire ER vanished. The guards, the storm, the blood, the machines, everything disappeared except the man staring up at her like he had found something in the middle of death that belonged to him. Elena tried to pull away. He didn't let go. You, he rasped. His voice was low, broken by pain, and yet somehow every man in the room reacted to it like an order. Elena's pulse slammed against his fingers. I'm your nurse, she said, forcing her voice steady, and you're losing blood. His eyes moved over her face with a dangerous kind of recognition, though she knew she had never seen him before. Then one of the suited men leaned close. Boss, we need to move you before they track us. Boss. The word crawled under Elena's skin. She had heard rumors in the city. Everyone had. Whispered names. Black cars. Restaurants that stayed open after midnight for men. No one questioned. Luca Moretti. The man people lowered their voices to mention. The man half the city feared and the other half pretended not to know. Elena looked down at him. No, it couldn't be. Luca's grip tightened, as if he could hear her thoughts. Dr. Reeves stepped forward carefully. Sir, we need consent to treat you. Luca didn't look at him. His eyes stayed locked on Elena. Her, he said. The room froze again. Elena's breath caught. What? Luca's bloodied fingers slid from her wrist to her palm. Possessive. Impossible. Final. She stays. One of his men lowered his head. Boss. Luca turned his eyes toward him. That was all it took. The man went silent. Elena should have been afraid of the guns hidden under their jackets. She should have been afraid of the blood, the threat, the way the exit suddenly felt farther away. But what scared her most was the way Luca Moretti looked at her. Not like a nurse. Not like a stranger. Like a decision. The monitor beside him screamed as his blood pressure dropped. Elena snapped back into motion. Pressure here. Start 2 large bore 4s. Get O negative, now. This time, everyone obeyed. She leaned over him, pressing gauze against the wound near his ribs. His jaw tightened, but he did not make a sound. Stay awake, she said. His eyes found hers again. I am. You were unconscious 30 seconds ago. The faintest shadow of a smile touched his mouth. Then don't let me go under again. Something in his voice slipped beneath her skin. A warning. A plea. A claim. Elena looked away first. Outside, thunder cracked over the city. Inside, Luca Moretti lifted her hand to his blood-stained chest and held it there like an oath. Then, with the whole emergency room watching, the most dangerous man in Chicago whispered one word that changed Elena Carter's life forever. Mina. Top of form, bottom of form. Bottom of form. The first thing Elena Carter learned about hospitals was that blood did not scare her. Screaming did not scare her either. Pain had a language. After 6 years in emergency medicine, she understood it better than most people understood words. A broken wrist sounded different from a collapsed lung. A mother's terror sounded different from a drunk man's panic. A dying person's silence had its own weight. But Luca Moretti's silence was different. It had control inside it. Even bleeding beneath her hands, even surrounded by machines and strangers, he made the trauma bay feel like his room. Elena pressed down harder on the wound near his ribs. Warm blood soaked through the gauze and spread across her gloves. "Pressure's dropping," Dr. Reeves said. "Then move faster," Elena snapped. A normal patient would have groaned. Luca only watched her. Not the doctor cutting away the rest of his shirt. Not the nurse adjusting the IV line. Not the man in the corner speaking quietly into a phone. Just her. Elena hated that she felt it. His stare moved over her like a touch, heavy and impossible to ignore. "You need surgery," she said. His voice came rough. "No hospital records. This isn't a negotiation." One of his men stepped closer. "You heard him." Elena turned on him so sharply the guard stopped. "And you heard me," she said. "Unless one of you went to medical school between shooting people and terrifying nurses, get out of my way." For one heartbeat, no one breathed. Then Luca laughed. It was barely a sound. More pain than amusement. But it shifted the room. The men in black looked at him, as if the sun had risen in the middle of a storm. Elena looked down at him. "You think this is funny?" "I think," he said slowly, his voice dragging over every word, "you're the first person tonight who forgot to be afraid of me. I'm terrified of you." His eyes sharpened. "I just don't have time for it." Something flickered across his face. Not softness. Luca Moretti did not look like a man who knew how to soften. But he looked at her differently after that. Dr. Reeves leaned closer. "Bullet 1 passed clean through. Bullet 2 is lodged near the lower rib. We need imaging. We need the ore." "No police," Luca said. Elena grabbed a fresh dressing. "You keep saying that like it matters more than your pulse." "It does." "To who?" "To everyone in this room." The words landed cold. Elena looked around. The other patients had been moved. Security was gone. The front desk receptionist was pale behind the glass window. 2 of Luca's men stood near the trauma bay doors like statues carved from threat. The hospital had not become quiet by accident. It had been muted, controlled, possessed. Just like the hand Luca still refused to remove from Elena's wrist. She finally looked down at it. "Let go." His thumb shifted against her pulse. "No. You're bleeding out and still trying to intimidate me?" "I'm not trying." The arrogance should have disgusted her. Instead, it sent heat crawling up her neck, sharp and unwanted. She pulled her hand free and turned away before he could see it. "Prep him for transfer. If he codes because his ego has a death wish, I'm not explaining that to God." Again, that almost smile. But when Elena stepped away to grab supplies, her knees nearly gave. She caught herself against the counter, breathing once through her nose. Not now. She could fall apart later. Later, when the blood was gone from her gloves. Later, when the most dangerous man in the city was not looking at her like he had seen through every wall she ever built. Later, when she remembered how to be invisible again. Because Elena Carter had spent most of her life surviving by being invisible. She lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a closed laundromat on the south side, where the pipes screamed in winter and the neighbors pretended not to hear arguments through thin walls. Her fridge usually held yogurt, expired orange juice, and whatever hospital cafeteria sandwich she had forgotten to eat. Her couch was second-hand. Her curtains were too short. Her lock stuck unless she lifted the door with her hip. No one waited up for her. No one called unless they needed something. Her mother had died when Elena was 19, leaving behind a shoebox of unpaid bills and a necklace Elena still wore beneath her scrubs. Her father had disappeared long before that, somewhere between a gambling debt and a promise to come back. Men had taught Elena early that tenderness often arrived with a cost hidden behind its back. So she learned to work. Double shifts, night shifts, holidays. She learned to say, "I'm fine," so convincingly that people stopped asking. She learned to eat standing up. She learned to smile at patients who cursed at her. She learned to go home alone, shower off strangers' blood, and lie in bed listening to sirens pass beneath her window. She had no time for danger. No room for obsession. No place in her life for a man like Luca Moretti. And yet his blood was drying on her wrist like a mark. Elena. She turned. Dr. Reeves stood near the CT hallway, face tight. We have a problem. Of course they did. What now? The system is down. Elena stared at him. The imaging system? All of it. Network outage. Behind him, one of Luca's men slipped his phone back into his coat. Elena saw it. So did Luca. His eyes narrowed slightly. Not surprised. Angry. Interesting. You did this? Elena asked the room. No one answered. Luca's voice cut through the silence. Not mine. The two words were enough to chill her blood. Because if Luca Moretti had not shut down the hospital system, then someone else had. Someone who knew he was there. Someone close enough to reach them. The lights flickered. A nurse gasped outside the trauma bay. Then the main ER doors opened again. Slowly. Elena heard the rain first. Then footsteps. Not rushed. Not panicked. Measured. Luca's men reached into their jackets at the same time. Dr. Reeves went white. No weapons in my ER. No one listened. Elena moved instinctively toward him in the hallway, but Luca's hand caught hers again, weaker this time but still commanding. Stay behind me. She looked at him in disbelief. You can't even sit up. His eyes were dark with pain and fury. Then stay close enough that I can still kill for you. The words stole the air from her lungs. At the end of the hallway, a man in a gray coat appeared beneath the fluorescent lights. Rainwater rolled from his sleeves. He smiled like he had arrived for a dinner reservation, not a war. His eyes moved past the guns, past the blood, past the doctors, straight to Elena. Then he said softly, "There she is." Luca's grip on her hand turned brutal. Elena's heart stopped. Because the man in the gray coat did not look at Luca Moretti like an enemy. He looked at Elena like he had come for her. Bottom of form. The man in the gray coat smiled as if he had been waiting years to see Elena Carter afraid. No one in the trauma bay spoke. The fluorescent lights above him flickered once, turning his face ghost pale for half a second before the power steadied again. Rainwater dripped from the hem of his coat and spread across the hospital floor in a dark, widening stain. Elena could hear her own breathing. She could hear Luca's. Slow, uneven, dangerous. The guard nearest the door lifted his gun beneath his jacket. The man in gray did not even glance at him. Careful, he said. Hospitals have cameras. Luca's voice came from behind Elena, low and rough. Not tonight. The man's smile thinned. So he knew. He knew the system was down. Elena's stomach twisted. She tried to pull her hand from Luca's grip, but his fingers locked harder around hers. He was half-conscious, bleeding, and still somehow felt like the most dangerous thing in the room. Who are you? Elena asked. The man tilted his head, amused that she had spoken. You don't remember me. It was not a question. Elena stared at him, searching his face, his eyes, the sharp line of his mouth. Nothing came back. No memory. No name. No reason for the cold certainty crawling up her spine. I've never seen you before. His gaze dropped to the necklace hidden beneath the collar of her scrubs. Not visible. It shouldn't have been visible. But somehow he knew where it was. Your mother had the same stubborn look, he said. The world narrowed. Elena stopped breathing. Luca shifted behind her, pain flashing across his face as he tried to sit up. Say another word about her. The man in gray looked past Elena for the first time. Luca Moretti, he said. Still barking, even with holes in you. Luca's mouth curved without warmth. Come closer and find out if I still bite. A few months ago, Elena would have thought men only spoke like that in movies. At 2:29 inches the morning, in a blood-streaked emergency room, she understood differently. Some men did not threaten. They announced what they were about to become. Dr. Reeves stepped forward with trembling authority. This is a restricted medical area. Whoever you are, you need to leave. The man in gray did not look at him. Elena Carter, he said softly. Daughter of Marianne Carter. Nurse. 28 years old. Lives alone above the closed laundromat on West Halsted. Second floor, faulty lock. Bedroom window facing the alley. Elena's blood turned to ice. Every detail struck like a hand around her throat. Luca's guards moved at once. Guns came out. Patients screamed somewhere beyond the trauma bay. Dr. Reeves backed into the supply cart, sending metal instruments clattering onto the floor. The man in gray raised both hands slowly, still smiling. Relax. I didn't come to shoot anyone. Luca's voice was quiet. That made it worse. You came to die. The man finally looked at Elena again. No, I came to collect what her mother stole. My mother didn't steal anything. The words came out sharper than she felt. Inside, Elena was shaking. Her mother had been kind, exhausted maybe, secretive in the last year of her life, but not a thief, never that. The man reached into his coat. Every gun in the room snapped higher. He paused with theatrical patience, then withdrew a small black envelope sealed with dark red wax. Elena recognized the symbol pressed into it before she understood why. A bird with its wings broken. Her mother had once drawn that same symbol on the back of a grocery receipt while Elena did homework at the kitchen table. When Elena asked what it meant, Marianne had gone pale, torn the paper into pieces, and told her never to ask again. The memory hit so hard Elena almost staggered. Luca felt it. His hand tightened. The man saw it too. There it is, he murmured. She did leave you something. I don't know what you're talking about. You will. He tossed the envelope onto the floor. It slid across the tile and stopped near Elena's shoe. No one moved. Luca looked at one of his men. Marco, a tall guard with a scar near his eyebrow, stepped forward, picked up the envelope, and handed it to Luca without taking his eyes off the man in gray. Luca broke the seal with blood-smeared fingers. Inside was a photograph. He stared at it. For the first time since he had arrived at Mercy General, Luca Moretti's face changed. Not much. Just enough. His jaw hardened. His eyes went colder. Something ancient and violent woke behind them. Elena leaned closer despite herself. The photograph showed her mother. Younger, terrified, standing beside a man Elena did not recognize. And in her mother's arms was a baby. Elena. On the back of the photograph, written in Elena Carter's handwriting, were 4 words. Protect her from them. Elena's throat closed. The man in gray watched her reaction like it fed him. She was very good at hiding, he said. For a while. Luca folded the photograph in his fist. You have 10 seconds to leave. Still pretending this is about you? The man asked. Touching. But I didn't come for Moretti blood tonight. His eyes returned to Elena. I came for hers. The room seemed to tilt. Elena felt suddenly exposed in her blue scrubs and blood-stained gloves, surrounded by armed men and secrets that had crawled out of her mother's grave. My blood? She whispered. The man stepped 1 pace forward. Luca's men raised their guns higher. He stopped. You don't know what she was, do you? Elena's anger cracked through the fear. She was a waitress. She worked doubles. She raised me alone. She died with $42 in her checking account. The man's smile faded. For the first time, something cruel and honest appeared beneath the charm. Your mother was the reason kings knelt in this city. Silence slammed into the trauma bay. Elena wanted to laugh. She wanted to scream. Instead, she stood frozen, while Luca's thumb moved once against her palm, a strange, grounding pressure. The man in gray continued, each word delivered like a blade. Marianne Carter was not her real name. She was born Marianne Belandi, the last living daughter of the Belandi line, the bloodline that once controlled every port, every union, every shipment, every judge who could be bought, and every judge who couldn't. Elena stared at him. No. Her mother had worn cheap shoes until the soles split. Her mother had cut coupons. Her mother had cried silently in the kitchen when rent was late. Her mother had not been Mafia royalty. That was insane. That was impossible. Luca's face said otherwise. Elena turned to him slowly. You knew? Pain moved across his features, but he did not deny it fast enough. That hesitation broke something inside her. You knew about my mother? Elena. She ripped her hand from his. The loss of contact flashed across his face like injury. Don't, she said. Her voice shook, but she didn't care. You don't get to look at me like that and keep secrets about my dead mother. Luca tried to push himself upright. His wound opened under the pressure. Blood spread fresh beneath the bandage. Elena instinctively moved toward him, then stopped. He saw the conflict. So did the man in gray. And he smiled again. There she is, he said, still saving monsters, just like Marianne. Elena turned on him. Shut up. The words echoed through the ER. For 1 second, even the storm outside seemed to pause. The man in gray looked delighted. "Oh, you are her daughter." Then he lifted his hand. Not toward a weapon. Toward the dark hallway behind him. A scream tore through the ER. A nurse. Then another. Elena spun around. At the far end of the emergency department, the lights went out one row at a time. Darkness swallowed the waiting room. Then triage. Then the nurse's station. Only the trauma bay remained lit, a bright square of panic surrounded by black. Luca's men shifted into formation. Marco cursed under his breath. Dr. Reeves reached for the emergency phone, but it was dead. Elena heard footsteps in the dark. More than one person. Many. Slow. Controlled. The man in gray stepped backward toward the shadows. "This was never an assassination," he said. "It was an introduction." Luca's voice was lethal. "Victor." The name struck the room like thunder. Victor smiled. So that was his name. And Luca knew it. Of course he knew it. Every man in the room knew more about Elena Carter's life than she did. Victor's eyes found hers one last time. Ask him why he really chose Mercy General tonight. Elena's heart lurched. Luca went still. Too still. Victor's smile widened. "Yes," he whispered. "Ask your protector why he bled his way to your hospital." Then the shadows behind him moved. A black-gloved hand appeared at the edge of the hallway. Then another. Weapons. Masks. Elena backed up until she hit the gurney. Luca caught her wrist again, but this time she did not know whether it was protection or possession. "Behind me," he ordered. Her laugh came out breathless and broken. "You're lying on a bed with 2 bullet wounds. And I'm still the safest place in this room." The first masked man stepped into the light. Then the second. Then the third. Victor disappeared into the dark, his voice floating back like a promise. "Bring me the girl alive." Luca's eyes locked on Elena's. Everything violent in him sharpened into one undeniable truth. No one in that hospital mattered to him the way she did. Not his guards. Not his empire. Not even his own life. He reached beneath the bloody sheet, pulled a gun from somewhere Elena had not even seen, and pressed it into her shaking hands. "Do you know how to use this?" Elena stared at the weapon. "No." Luca's hand closed over hers, guiding her fingers around the grip. "Then don't miss." The trauma bay doors exploded inward. The doors slammed open so violently the glass panels shattered against the walls. Elena screamed before she could stop herself. Masked men flooded into the trauma bay with weapons raised, black coats dripping rainwater, boots grinding broken glass into the tile. For half a second, everything became flashes. Metal. Blood. Light. Luca's hand over hers, the gun shaking in her grip. Then the first shot cracked through the room. Elena flinched, but Luca did not. He pulled her down behind the gurney just as bullets tore through the cabinets above them. Medication vials exploded. Fluids burst from hanging bags. A monitor sparked and died with a shriek. "Stay low," Luca ordered. "You're bleeding." I noticed. His voice was calm. Too calm. Like this was not a hospital anymore. Like this was familiar territory. Marco and the other guards returned fire from the doorway, their bodies forming a shield around the trauma bay. Dr. Reeves crawled beneath a rolling cart, his face gray with terror. Somewhere outside, a patient cried for help. Elena pressed one bloody hand over Luca's bandage. "You can't fight like this." Luca's eyes cut to hers. "I'm not fighting." Another bullet struck the side of the gurney. Elena ducked lower. "I'm keeping you alive," he said. The words hit harder than the gunfire. Before she could answer, one of the masked men broke through Marco's line and lunged toward her. Elena froze. Luca moved. No hesitation. No fear. He rose from the gurney with impossible violence, one arm locked around Elena's waist, the other hand lifting his gun. He fired once. The masked man dropped before he touched her. But the movement tore Luca's wound open. Fresh blood poured down his side. His face went white. Elena caught him as his knees buckled. "Luca." His weight nearly dragged her to the floor. For one terrible second, the most feared man in Chicago was just a dying man in her arms. Then his mouth brushed her ear. "Left side." She turned. Another man was coming. Elena lifted the gun with both hands. Her fingers trembled so badly she could barely hold it. The man raised his weapon. Luca's hand covered hers from behind. "Breathe," he whispered. She did. Once. The shot exploded from her hands. The man screamed and fell backward, clutching his shoulder. Elena stared, horrified. "I shot him." "You lived," Luca said. That was the only comfort he offered. The power flickered again. For a moment, the trauma bay plunged into darkness. In the black, Elena felt Luca's body curve around hers, shielding her. His blood soaked through the back of her scrubs. Then the emergency lights kicked in, bathing the room red. The scene looked unreal. Like hell had opened inside Mercy General. Marco shouted something in Italian. 2 guards dragged a fallen attacker away from the door. Another masked man tried to retreat into the hallway, but Luca lifted his gun from where he leaned against Elena and fired without looking. The man dropped. Elena's breath caught. Luca's eyes were not on him. They were on her. "You're hurt," she said. "So are you." She looked down. A thin red line cut across her forearm, where flying glass had sliced her skin. She had not even felt it. Luca saw the blood. Something changed in him. The room had already been dangerous. Now it became deadly. His gaze lifted slowly toward the remaining attackers. Who touched her? No one answered. Even through masks, Elena felt their fear. Luca Moretti stood barely upright, shirt open, torso covered in blood, one hand gripping the gurney rail to keep himself from collapsing. And still, every armed man in the room understood they had made a mistake. A final one. "Luca," Elena whispered. "Don't." But he was no longer listening. Marco stepped forward. "Boss, we need to move." Luca's voice came low and empty. "Not until they understand." One masked man near the supply room dropped his weapon. "I didn't cut her," he said quickly. "It was glass." Luca stared at him, then smiled. Elena's stomach turned. It was not warmth. It was a warning before cruelty. "You came into a hospital," Luca said. "You pointed guns at doctors. You terrified civilians." His eyes dropped to Elena's bleeding arm. "And you made her bleed." The man backed up. Marco moved faster. He struck the man hard, disarmed him, and forced him to his knees. The others were already retreating, dragging their wounded through the dark hallway. Luca swayed. Elena grabbed his face between both hands, forcing him to look at her. Enough. His eyes snapped back to hers. For one heartbeat she saw the war inside him. Violence, pain, obsession. And beneath all of it, something almost frighteningly human. He could ignore bullets. He could ignore blood loss. But not her voice. Not when she said enough. The last attackers vanished into the darkness. The hospital fell into a broken kind of silence. Alarms wailed somewhere away. Sprinklers hissed over the waiting room. The smell of smoke, antiseptic, and blood filled Elena's lungs. Then Luca collapsed. This time, no pride caught him. No command held him upright. He went down hard. Elena dropped with him, both hands pressing against his wound. "Luca, stay with me." His lashes lowered. She slapped his cheek. "Do not do this. Do you hear me? You do not get to drag an entire war into my ER, hand me a gun, call me yours in front of everyone, then die on my floor." His eyes opened halfway. "Even dying," he looked amused. "You remember that?" "I remember everything." His hand lifted with effort and touched the necklace beneath her scrubs. Elena went still. The chain had slipped free during the chaos. Luca's bloody thumb brushed the small silver pendant her mother had given her before she died. A simple oval locket. Plain. Cheap. Or so Elena had always thought. Luca's expression changed again. Not surprise this time. Recognition. Fear. Actual fear. Elena's voice dropped. "What?" Marco turned and saw the pendant. His face lost color. Dr. Reeves crawled from beneath the cart, saw Marco's expression and froze. Elena looked between them. "What is this?" Luca's hand closed around the pendant, but he was too weak to hide it. "Elena," he said, voice barely there. "Who gave you this?" "My mother." His jaw tightened. "When?" "The night before she died." Luca closed his eyes. For the first time since Elena met him, he looked defeated. "Tell me what it is," she demanded. He opened his eyes again. The red emergency light made them look almost black. "That locket," he whispered, "is why half the city has been hunting you since you were born." Elena's entire body went cold. Marco moved closer, voice urgent. "Boss, we cannot stay. If Victor saw it." "He saw enough," Luca said. Elena pulled the locket from his hand. "Stop talking around me." Luca reached for her wrist, but this time his grip was weak. "Elena, listen to me." "No, you listen to me." Her voice broke, but she forced it steady. "My mother was not who I thought she was. A man I've never met knows where I live. Armed men just attacked my hospital. And you?" She swallowed hard. "You knew my name before tonight, didn't you?" The silence answered before he did. Her chest tightened. Say it. Luca looked at her with blood on his mouth and something almost like regret in his eyes. Yes. The word struck her harder than any bullet. Elena stood slowly. The gun slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. You came here on purpose. Luca tried to rise. Failed. Elena. You didn't just happen to end up at Mercy General. His silence was unbearable. She stepped back, shaking her head. You chose my ER. Marco looked away. That was when she knew. The truth was bigger than Luca. Bigger than Victor. Bigger than every lie her mother had buried. Elena touched the locket, suddenly afraid of its weight. Why? Luca's breathing was rough now. Each inhale a fight. But his eyes stayed locked on hers like he would rather bleed out than look away. Because your mother made me swear. Elena froze. Thunder rolled over the hospital. Luca's voice dropped to a whisper. 12 years ago, Marianne Carter saved my life, and before she disappeared she gave me one order. Elena could barely speak. What order? His bloody fingers reached for her, but she did not move closer. Not yet. Luca looked at the locket, then at her. She said if the Belandi seal ever surfaced again, I was to find her daughter before Victor did. The air left Elena's lungs. Belandi seal. Her mother's old name. The broken-winged bird. The locket. All of it connected. All of it had been waiting beneath her skin her whole life. Elena opened the locket with trembling fingers. Inside was not a photograph. Not hair. Not some sentimental memory from a dead mother. It was a tiny black chip, hidden behind the metal frame. Marco cursed. Luca's face darkened. Elena stared at it, numb. What is this? Luca's answer came slowly. The map to every hidden Belandi account. Every judge they owned. Every cop they bought. Every politician who ever took their money. His eyes burned into hers. And the proof that Victor murdered your mother for it. Elena stopped breathing. For years, she had believed her mother died in a hit-and-run because the police report said so. A rainy road. A speeding driver. No witnesses. No justice. Just a closed casket and a bill Elena could barely pay. But Luca was still speaking. And that's not the worst part. Elena looked at him. The room seemed to tilt around her. What could be worse? Luca's expression turned brutal with the truth he had not wanted to give her. Victor didn't kill her because she stole from him. His eyes held hers. He killed her because she was going to give everything to you. Elena's fingers closed around the locket until the metal bit into her palm. Outside the shattered trauma bay doors, the darkness shifted again. A phone began ringing on one of the fallen attackers. Slow. Patient. Impossible to ignore. Marco picked it up and looked at the screen. His face hardened. It's Victor. Luca held out his hand. Marco hesitated, then placed the phone against Luca's ear. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Victor's voice drifted through the speaker, soft and pleased. Now she knows. Elena's heart pounded. Luca's stare stayed on her. Victor laughed quietly. Tell the Belandi princess I'll give her 1 hour to hand me the locket. A pause. Then his voice turned colder. After that, I burn down everyone she has ever saved. Top of form, bottom of form. The phone went silent. For 3 seconds, no one moved. Then Elena laughed. It was not humor. It was shock cracking through her chest, sharp and ugly and uncontrollable. She pressed one hand to her mouth, but the sound still escaped between her fingers. A Belandi princess. The words did not belong to her. She was not a princess of anything. She was Elena Carter, the nurse who bought discount cereal, who worked double shifts to cover rent, who knew how to fix her apartment heater by kicking the side panel twice. Her kingdom was a locker with a broken hinge and a coffee mug that said "World's Okayest Nurse." She was not some lost heir to a criminal empire. She was not the reason men died in hospital hallways. She was not worth burning a city for. But Luca Moretti looked at her like Victor's threat had just set the world on fire. Marco lowered the phone slowly. Boss. Luca held out his hand. Give me the jacket. You can't stand. Then carry me standing. Elena snapped back into her body. Absolutely not. Every man turned toward her. She stepped in front of Luca before Marco could move, one palm raised, like she could physically stop the madness. You have 2 bullet wounds, major blood loss, and no surgical closure. You are not leaving this trauma bay. Luca's eyes lifted to hers. Victor gave you 1 hour. I heard him. Then you understand why we leave now. No, I understand why you think you can order everyone around until physics changes for you. She pointed at his abdomen. Your body does not care that you're terrifying. If you walk out of here like this, you die." A ghost of something moved across his mouth. "Concern looks good on you." Elena stared at him. "You are impossible. I've been told worse. You need an oar. I need to get you somewhere safe." The words struck too deep. She hated that. She hated that after everything, after his lies, his secrets, his blood on her hands, some part of her still reacted to the rough protectiveness in his voice. She stepped closer, lowering her tone so only he could hear. "I don't know you." Luca's gaze darkened. "You know more than most. I know your name. I know people fear you. I know you came to my hospital on purpose and let me think this was an accident." Pain flickered across his face, but he did not look away. "I came because Victor moved first. You should have told me." "Yes." That stopped her. She had expected excuses, dominance, some cold explanation that made her feel small. Not that. Not one quiet word that admitted guilt without running from it. Elena swallowed. "Why didn't you?" Luca's eyes dropped to the locket in her hand. "Because the last time someone told your mother the truth, she died 3 days later." The room seemed to tilt again. Elena closed her fist around the locket. Behind them the ER was still chaos. Staff whispered in broken voices. The wounded groaned. Somewhere down the hall, someone sobbed near the waiting room. Yet inside the trauma bay, the silence between Luca and Elena felt louder than everything. Dr. Reeves approached carefully. His mask hung loose under his chin, his face pale and shining with sweat. "Elena," he said, "the police are on the way." Marco's head snapped toward him. Dr. Reeves lifted both hands. "Someone called before the lines went dead. I don't know who, but they're coming." Luca's expression hardened. Elena saw it instantly. "That's bad," she said. Marco gave a humorless laugh. "Police are never just police in this city." Dr. Reeves looked offended, then terrified by how little anyone cared. Luca pushed himself up on one elbow. Elena caught his shoulder. "Stop moving." "Reeves," Luca said. The doctor stiffened. Luca's voice was weak but carried the weight of command. "You treated no one named Moretti tonight." Dr. Reeves blinked. "What? You had a trauma patient. He died before intake." Elena stared at him. "No." Luca ignored her. "You never saw her." "No," Elena said louder. His eyes cut to hers. She felt the full force of him then. Even half dead, Luca could make the air kneel. But Elena had spent 6 years standing over men who thought pain made them gods. She stepped closer until her knees nearly touched the gurney. "You don't get to erase me from my own life." "Elena." "No. You don't get to decide I disappear because it's convenient for your war." His jaw tightened. "It is not convenient. It is survival. It's control. It's protection. It feels the same when the person being protected gets no choice." For a moment, no one breathed. Luca looked at her with something sharp and unreadable. Then softly he said, "You want a choice?" "Yes." "Fine." His voice dropped. "Choose fast." The emergency lights painted blood across the planes of his face. "If you stay here, Victor will send someone wearing a badge. They will ask questions. They will separate you from everyone who can protect you. Then you will vanish into a car that never reaches the station." Elena's stomach tightened. "If you go home, he already knows your address. He knows your lock, your window, your habits. He will not knock." Her fingers dug into her palm. "If you run alone, you last until the first traffic camera, the first hospital record, the first person who recognizes your face from whatever file he has been keeping since before you knew his name." Luca leaned closer, despite the pain that whitened his mouth. "And if you come with me, you enter a world that will frighten you, anger you, and try to swallow you whole. But you will breathe. You will sleep behind walls Victor cannot cross. And I will put every man I command between you and the grave your mother died trying to keep you from." Elena's throat burned. There it was. The choice. 3 doors. All of them dark. All of them ending with Luca. She looked down at the locket. The tiny black chip was still hidden inside, ugly and impossible, as if her entire life had been a lie folded into cheap silver. "My patience," she whispered. "Luca still." She looked up at him. "Victor said he'd burn down everyone I ever saved. He's trying to make you emotional. It's working. I know." That tenderness in his voice nearly undid her. She hated him for it. Luca turned to Marco. "List every patient Elena Carter treated in the last 72 hours. Move security to their homes. Quietly." Elena stared at him. Marco nodded without hesitation. Done. Not just patients, Elena said, the words rushing out now. Staff too. Nurses. Reeves. The receptionist. The janitor who saw them come in. Luca looked at Marco. Marco was already dialing. Elena watched, stunned. No argument. No lecture. No asking whether they mattered. He simply heard what she feared, and moved an empire around it. Luca's eyes returned to hers. Anyone else? Elena thought of the woman in room 4 who had brought her toddler in with a fever, the old man in bed 7 who called every nurse sweetheart, the teenage girl with panic attacks who always asked for Elena because Elena never made her feel crazy. She thought of her apartment, her mother's necklace, the shoebox under her bed with old photographs and unpaid hospital bills from a life she had never fully understood. Then she thought of Victor's voice. Bring me the girl alive. She looked at Luca. My apartment. His expression darkened. What about it? My mother's things are there. No. No. The word came too fast. Elena's eyes narrowed. No? Victor will expect you to go back. I have one box. Elena. It has her photos, her letters, everything I have left of her. Luca's face hardened into stone. Marco, still on the phone, looked away like he already knew this argument would be dangerous. You are not going there, Luca said. Elena stepped closer. Watch me. His eyes flashed. She should have been afraid. She was. But fear had become familiar tonight. It was everywhere. In the blood, the dark hallways, the ringing phones, the ruined hospital floor. Anger felt cleaner. Stronger. You dragged me into this, she said. You don't get to take what little I have left. I am trying to keep you alive. And I am trying to remember who I am before every man in this room tells me what I belong to. The words struck him. She saw it. Especially that last word. Belong. His face changed, almost imperceptibly. When Luca spoke again, his voice was quieter. You don't belong to them. Elena's heart gave one painful twist. And do I belong to you? The room went very still. Marco stopped talking. Dr. Reeves stared at the floor. Luca's gaze held hers like a locked door. No, he said. The answer surprised her. Then he added, but I meant what I said. Her breath caught. Mine. The word returned between them, impossible to ignore. His eyes lowered briefly to her mouth, then back to her eyes. When I said it, he continued, I was bleeding, half-conscious and facing death. Men lie for many reasons, Elena. Dying men usually don't waste breath. Heat climbed into her face. You don't even know me. I know you ran toward a bleeding stranger when every other person froze. That's my job. I know you stood between me and my men with scissors in your hand like you could cut fear out of the room. You were bleeding on my floor. I know you are terrified and still arguing with me, because you're wrong. I know you love your mother enough to walk into a trap for a box of memories. Elena's eyes burned. Luca's voice softened, and somehow that was more dangerous than any threat. And I know if Victor wants you, then the only place I want you is where I can reach you. She looked away first. Not because he won. Because something inside her wanted to believe him. That was the most terrifying part. Marco ended his call. Cars are ready. 2 minutes. Luca nodded, then tried to swing his legs off the gurney. Elena shoved him back with both hands. He hissed in pain. Good, she said. That was stupid. One of the guards coughed like he was hiding a laugh. Luca slowly turned his head. The guard went pale. Elena grabbed supplies from the cabinet. We stabilize you first. Elena. Say my name one more time in that warning tone, and I will sedate you. Marco muttered something in Italian. Luca's eyes did not leave her face. You would not dare. Elena held up a syringe. I have had a long night. For a second, the corner of his mouth lifted. Then pain erased it. Elena moved fast. Hands steady now. Training taking over. She packed the wound tighter, changed the dressing, reinforced pressure, checked his pupils, his pulse, his breathing. She could feel every eye in the room on her, but she focused only on the work, on keeping him alive. When she leaned over him to secure the bandage, Luca spoke so softly no one else could hear. You should hate me. Her fingers paused. I'm considering it. You should do more than consider. She looked at him. His face was too close. Blood on his jaw, rain in his hair, death at his back. Yet his eyes held something raw enough to make her chest ache. Why? She whispered. Because once I take you with me, I will not know how to let you go. Elena stopped breathing. There were 100 things she should have said. That he had no right. that she was not his. That he was a criminal, a liar, a man who turned hospitals into war zones. Instead, the trauma bay doors opened, and one of Luca's men rushed in. "Boss, police scanner says units are 2 blocks out." Marco cursed. Luca's face shut down. The moment vanished. He became the boss again. "Move." This time, Elena did not argue. She grabbed a trauma bag, stuffed it with surgical supplies, blood packs, antibiotics, pain medication, and anything else she could steal quickly enough to keep a bleeding mafia boss alive outside a hospital. Dr. Reeves caught her wrist as she passed. "Elena." His eyes were wide with fear. "You don't have to go with them." She looked at his hand on her wrist, then at the ruined ER, then at Luca. Luca did not speak. He let the choice sit with her, heavy and terrible. Elena pulled gently free. "Yes," she said. "I do." Dr. Reeves looked devastated. "Tell everyone I'm sorry," she whispered. Marco wrapped Luca in a black coat, and 2 men lifted him from the gurney. He tried to walk on his own anyway, because, apparently, arrogance was the last organ to fail. Elena stayed at his side despite herself. The hallway outside the trauma bay looked like a battlefield. Broken glass glittered beneath the red emergency lights. Nurses huddled behind counters. A security guard sat against the wall with blood on his temple, while another nurse pressed gauze to his head. Elena stopped. Luca noticed immediately. "What?" She pulled away and knelt by the guard. "He needs stitches." Marco glanced toward the entrance. "We do not have time." Elena ignored him. She checked the wound, pressed clean gauze into place, and looked at the nurse beside him. "Hold pressure, 10 minutes minimum. If he vomits or gets confused, head CT as soon as the system's back. Do not let him sleep." The nurse nodded, crying silently. Elena squeezed her shoulder once, then stood. Luca watched her, not impatiently, not angrily, with something like awe hidden beneath exhaustion. "What?" she snapped. His voice was low. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. It followed her all the way to the back exit. Outside, the storm had not softened. Black SUVs waited in the ambulance bay, engines running, headlights cutting through sheets of rain. Men moved with frightening precision, opening doors, scanning rooftops, speaking into earpieces. Elena stepped under the overhang and felt the cold night air hit her face. For one breath, she almost ran. Not toward home, not toward safety, just away. Away from Luca, away from Victor, away from the dead woman her mother had never been. Then Luca's hand found hers. Not gripping this time, not commanding. Just there, warm despite the rain, bloody despite the bandages. Waiting. Elena looked down at their hands, then at him. He was barely standing, held up by pride, violence, and 2 loyal men. "You lied to me," she said. "Yes. You used my hospital. Yes. You know more about my life than I do." His jaw tightened. "Yes. I may never forgive you." His eyes held hers through the rain. "I know." Elena swallowed the ache rising in her throat. "But if Victor killed my mother," he did. "And if that chip proves it," it does, "then I want the truth." Luca's thumb brushed once over her knuckles. "You'll have it. All of it." His eyes darkened with promise. "All of it." Sirens wailed in the distance. Blue and red lights flickered at the far end of the street. Marco opened the SUV door. "Now." Elena climbed in first. Luca followed, lowering himself beside her with a controlled breath that did not hide his pain. The door slammed shut, sealing them inside leather, darkness, rain, and the faint metallic smell of blood. The car moved before Elena could buckle her seatbelt. Mercy General blurred behind them. Her life blurred with it. For several minutes, no one spoke. The city outside looked unfamiliar through rain-streaked glass. Streetlights smeared gold across the windows. Police cars screamed past in the opposite direction, heading toward the ruined hospital as Luca's convoy slipped into the black arteries of Chicago. Elena held the locket in her fist. Luca leaned back beside her, eyes half closed, breathing shallow. "You're going into shock," she said. "I've had worse. Stop saying things that make me want to hit you." His eyes opened. Even pale, even bleeding, he looked amused. "You want to hit me? I want to do a lot of things to you right now." The silence that followed was sudden, charged, dangerous in an entirely different way. Elena realized what she had said, half a second too late. Luca turned his head slowly. The darkness inside the SUV made his eyes look almost black. "Careful, nurse." Her pulse jumped. "Don't do that." What? Make everything sound like a threat. His gaze dropped to her mouth again. Not everything is a threat. Heat flooded her chest, unwanted and sharp. The driver cleared his throat. Elena looked out the window, furious with herself. Luca's faint smile faded when his phone buzzed. Marco, seated in the front, answered, listened, then turned. Boss. Luca's expression changed. What? Marco's eyes flicked to Elena. That was enough to make her stomach drop. What happened? She demanded. Marco hesitated. Luca's voice hardened. Say it. Marco looked at her through the rearview mirror. 2 men were spotted outside your apartment 10 minutes ago. Elena's hand tightened around the locket. The box, she whispered. Luca's jaw flexed. Marco continued. They didn't enter. Why not? Luca asked. Because someone else got there first. The SUV seemed to shrink around Elena. Luca sat straighter despite the pain. Who? Marco's face was grim. An old woman, neighbor from downstairs. She walked out carrying a shoebox and a kitchen knife. Elena's eyes widened. Mrs. Alvarez? Marco nodded once. She told Victor's men that if they wanted the girl's memories, they would have to kill a grandmother on the sidewalk. Elena's throat closed. Luca stared forward, something unreadable moving through his face. Where is she now? Elena asked. Safe. Our men reached her. She refused protection until they promised the box was going directly to you. Elena covered her mouth. For the first time all night, tears came. Not from fear. Not from shock. From the image of 72-year-old Mrs. Alvarez standing in the rain with arthritis in both hands, holding Elena's mother's memories and a knife she probably hadn't sharpened in 15 years. Luca watched her cry like it physically hurt him. He reached for her, then stopped himself. The restraint was worse than the touch would have been. Elena wiped her face quickly. I'm fine. No, Luca said. She looked at him. His voice was quiet. You're not. That simple truth broke something. She turned toward the window before he could see more. But he already had. The convoy turned off the main road and passed through a private gate Elena would not have noticed if 2 armed men had not opened it from the shadows. Beyond it rose a mansion carved out of darkness. Black iron, stone walls, tall windows glowing amber against the rain. It did not look like a home. It looked like a fortress pretending to be one. The SUV stopped beneath a covered entrance. The doors opened immediately. Men surrounded them. Elena climbed out, clutching the trauma bag and locket, rain misting her hair. Luca stepped out after her and nearly collapsed. She caught him. Again. His arm came around her shoulders, heavy and warm. Every armed man at the entrance saw it. Every one of them went still. Elena felt the shift before she understood it. Respect. Fear. Recognition. A woman in a black dress appeared at the top of the steps. She was older, elegant, silver-haired, with eyes sharp enough to cut skin. She looked at Luca, bleeding against Elena. Then at Elena herself. So, the woman said quietly. Luca's voice was rough. Not now, Sophia. Sophia descended 1 step, her gaze fixed on the locket in Elena's hand. The color drained from her face. My God, she whispered. Marianne's child. Elena's fingers tightened around the pendant. You knew my mother too? Sophia looked at Luca. And in that look, Elena saw another secret. Another locked door. Another betrayal waiting. Luca's face hardened, inside. But Elena did not move. No. Rain fell harder beyond the stone archway. Luca looked at her, warning in his eyes. She ignored it. No more walking into rooms where everyone knows my life except me. Her voice shook, but she held it steady. Who was my mother to all of you? Sophia's expression softened with grief. Luca closed his eyes briefly, as if the answer itself could wound him. Then Sophia spoke, before he could stop her. Your mother was supposed to marry him. The world went silent. Elena slowly turned to Luca. Him. Luca. The man who had called her mine. The man who had bled into her hands. The man who had brought her into his fortress like salvation and danger were the same thing. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. My mother was supposed to marry you? Luca opened his eyes. There was no lie left in them now. Only pain. No, he said softly. Elena's breath caught. Sophia looked away. Luca's gaze held Elena's like confession, punishment, and warning all at once. She was supposed to marry my father. Elena stood beneath the stone archway with rain dripping from her hair and Luca Moretti's blood drying on her scrubs. For one moment she forgot how to breathe. She was supposed to marry your father? The question came out thin, almost hollow. Luca said nothing. That silence was worse than an answer. Sophia's face tightened with regret. Elena. No. Elena Laver took one step back. No, don't say my name like you know me. Everyone tonight keeps saying my name like they own a piece of it. Luca's jaw flexed. He was barely standing. His arm pressed against his ribs, blood seeping between his fingers despite the reinforced bandages. Any other man would have collapsed before reaching the front steps. But Luca Moretti remained upright, not because he wasn't in pain, but because he refused to let pain humiliate him. Elena, he said quietly, inside, then I'll tell you everything. She laughed once, bitter and shaking. You keep saying that, everything, the truth, all of it. But every time someone opens their mouth, there's another lie under the last one. The men around them stood frozen in the rain. No one dared move. No one dared look directly at Luca. Except Elena. She looked at him like she finally understood something terrible. My mother knew your family. Yes. She was connected to this world. Yes. She was supposed to marry your father. Luca's eyes darkened. Yes. Elena looked down at the locket in her fist. The cheap silver pendant that had rested against her chest for 12 years. The thing she thought was love, memory, grief, a goodbye. Now it felt like a bomb her mother had hung around her neck. And you knew, she whispered. I knew pieces. Don't soften it. I'm not. You are. Her voice rose. You're bleeding on marble steps and still choosing words like weapons. Something in Luca's expression shifted. Pain. Not physical this time. Sophia stepped forward. Your mother disappeared before Luca was old enough to understand everything. He was a boy. Elena turned to her sharply. How old? Sophia hesitated. Luca answered, 17. Elena stared at him. 17. A boy, but not a child. Old enough to remember. Old enough to be marked by it. Old enough to have secrets. And my mother? 24, Sophia said softly. Elena swallowed hard. Images flashed through her mind. Her mother in old photographs smiling tiredly beside a birthday cake. Her mother wrapping a cheap scarf around Elena's neck before school. Her mother standing in their kitchen at midnight, staring out the window like someone might be watching. That woman had once been 24. That woman had once been promised to a Mafia patriarch. Why? Elena asked. Sophia looked at Luca. Luca's voice came rough. Because the Moretti family had power. The Belandi family had legitimacy. A marriage between them would have united the old empire with the new. Elena's stomach twisted. So she was currency. Luca's eyes hardened. Yes. That answer was immediate. Brutal. Honest. It hurt more because he did not deny it. Elena looked at the mansion behind him, the iron gate, the stone walls, the armed men, the windows glowing like eyes in the dark. And she ran. She did? From your father? A shadow crossed Luca's face. From all of them. Before Elena could respond, Luca's knees buckled. It happened fast. 1 second he was standing by force of will. The next, his body gave out. Elena moved without thinking. She dropped the trauma bag, caught him against her, and nearly fell under his weight. Luca. Marco lunged forward. 2 guards grabbed Luca under the arms, but Luca's hand clamped around Elena's wrist like instinct. Even unconsciousness could not make him let go. Medical room, Sophia ordered, her elegant voice suddenly sharp. Now. The mansion exploded into motion. Men carried Luca through the doors. Elena followed, pulled by his grip, by her training, by anger, by fear she refused to name. The inside of the house blurred around her black marble floors, high ceilings, oil paintings, chandeliers dimmed low, shadows in every corner. It was not a home. It was a museum of power. A place built by people who wanted visitors to remember they were small. They took Luca down a wide hallway and through double doors into a private medical suite that looked more advanced than half the hospital Elena worked in. Surgical lights, monitors, stainless steel trays, cabinets stocked with controlled medication. Elena stopped for half a second. Of course he had this. Of course Luca Moretti had a secret operating room inside his house. Put him there, she said, pointing to the surgical bed. No one questioned her. Not even Sophia. The men laid Luca down. His face had gone dangerously pale. Blood spread beneath him almost instantly. Elena snapped gloves from a drawer. Get that coat off him. Cut the shirt. I need suction, saline, suture kit, lidocaine, clamps, blood pressure cuff, pulse ox. Move. The guards looked at Marco. Marco looked at Sophia. Sophia looked at Elena. Then Sophia said, "Do as she says." After that, the room obeyed her. For the next 20 minutes, Elena was not a hunted woman. She was not Marianne Belandi's daughter. She was not the girl with a locket full of evidence. She was a nurse fighting death with both hands. And Luca was a terrible patient. Even unconscious, his body resisted help like survival was an argument he intended to win alone. His pressure dipped twice. Elena cursed at him both times. "You do not get to die before explaining this mess to me," she muttered, packing the wound tighter. Marco stood near the wall, silent and grim. Sophia remained by the door, arms crossed, watching Elena with an expression Elena could not read. Finally, Luca's pulse stabilized. Not perfect, not safe, but alive. Elena stepped back, her shoulders aching, her hands trembling from adrenaline. Blood streaked her wrists where her gloves had torn. For a few seconds, the only sounds were the monitor beeping and rain striking the windows. Then Sophia spoke. "You have your mother's hands." Elena did not look at her. "My mother was a waitress. She was many things." Elena turned. "I'm tired of hearing that." Sophia's eyes softened. "I imagine you are." "No." Elena stripped off her gloves and threw them into the bin. "You don't get to imagine anything about me. You all had years. 12 years since she died. 28 years since I was born. Any one of you could have told me." Sophia absorbed the accusation without flinching. "We were ordered not to." "By who?" Sophia looked at Luca. Elena followed her gaze. He lay pale and still beneath the surgical lights, the most dangerous man she had ever met and somehow the only person in the room who looked breakable. "My mother?" Elena asked. "Yes." Elena's anger faltered. Sophia walked to a locked cabinet, removed a small brass key from a chain around her neck, and opened the bottom drawer. From inside, she pulled a worn leather folder tied with a faded blue ribbon. Elena recognized the color. Her mother used to wear that shade on Sundays. Sophia held it out. "This was left for you." Elena stared at it but did not take it. Another secret. Another piece of a life everyone else had guarded while she lived in ignorance. "What is it?" "Your mother's first letter." Elena's throat tightened. "First?" Sophia nodded. She left several. The room tilted. Elena reached for the folder slowly, as if it might burn her. Her fingers touched the leather. For a moment, she was 19 again, standing beside a closed casket, wishing her mother had left anything behind except debt and silence. She untied the ribbon. Inside was an envelope, yellowed with age. Written across the front in her mother's handwriting were 2 words. "Me Elena." The sight of it broke her more than bullets had. Elena turned away quickly, but not fast enough. Sophia saw the tears. So did Marco. No one spoke. Elena opened the envelope with shaking fingers. The letter smelled faintly of paper, dust, and something floral that may only have been memory. She read silently at first. Then the words blurred. Sophia's voice came soft behind her. "She wanted you to have a childhood before the truth found you." Elena blinked hard. "My mother died before I finished growing up." "I know." "No, you don't." Elena's voice cracked. "You don't know what it was like being alone after her. You don't know what it was like choosing between rent and food. You don't know what it was like sitting in a hospital billing office, signing payment plans for the funeral of the only person who ever loved me." Sophia's composure fractured. Just slightly. "Enough." Elena stepped closer. "Where were all of you then?" Sophia looked down. The answer came from the bed. "Being punished." Elena spun around. Luca's eyes were open. Dark, fevered, focused on her. She moved to him automatically, then caught herself halfway. He noticed. Of course he noticed. "You should be unconscious," she said. "You sound disappointed." "I'm flexible." His mouth twitched. Then pain cut through his face. Elena checked the monitor despite herself. "Don't move." "I won't. That would be more convincing if you weren't already trying." He exhaled slowly. Sophia stepped forward. "Luca." He lifted 2 fingers. She stopped. "Even half dead," he commanded the room. But his eyes stayed on Elena. "You asked where we were," he said. "Yes. My father locked down every Moretti asset connected to Marianne after she ran. Anyone who helped her disappeared, died, or lost everything." Sophia's face went pale. Elena looked at her. "You helped her." Sophia nodded once. "I was her maid. Then her friend. Then the woman who drove the car the night she escaped." Elena's grip tightened around the letter. Luca continued, voice rough. "My father found out. He kept Sophia alive because my mother begged, but he stripped her family of money, property, protection. Sophia's eyes remained dry, but grief lived in every line of her face. Marianne made me promise never to look for you, she said. She said if anyone from this world touched your life, Victor would smell blood. Elena turned back to Luca. And you? His face changed. The silence was answer enough, but Elena needed the words. What did your father do to you? Sophia stepped in sharply. Elena! No, Luca said. His eyes did not leave Elena. He made me watch. The words were quiet, cold, but something in them dragged the room into the past. Elena's anger stilled. Watch what? Luca looked at the ceiling for a moment, jaw tight. Then he said, the men who helped her. Elena felt sick. He wanted me to understand what loyalty cost when it was given to the wrong person. Sophia's voice trembled with controlled fury. He wanted to turn him into himself. Luca's mouth hardened. He succeeded for a while. Elena stared at him. There it was again. Truth without defense. No apology polished enough to manipulate her. No excuse. Just confession, raw and ugly. You were 17, she whispered. I was old enough to know cruelty when I saw it. And still you became him? Luca's eyes cut back to hers. No. The word was quiet but absolute. I became worse in every way that let me survive him. Then I killed the parts of his empire that fed on people like your mother. Marco shifted near the wall. Sophia looked away. Elena heard what wasn't being said. And then you killed him? The room went colder. Luca's gaze did not waver. Yes. The word should have terrified her. It did. But not the way it should have. Because beneath the violence, beneath the blood, beneath the man who had dragged death into her life, Elena could see the outline of a boy forced to watch loyalty, punished until he learned power was the only language monsters respected. She hated that she saw it. Hated that some part of her hurt for him. Luca seemed to hate it too. Do not pity me, he said. I wasn't planning to. Good. You're still a liar. Yes. And a criminal. Yes. And impossibly arrogant. His eyes softened by a fraction. That one may be genetic. Elena almost smiled. Almost. Then the door opened. A guard stepped in, carrying a shoebox wrapped in a plastic bag. Elena's entire body went still. Mrs. Alvarez had saved it. Her mother's things. The guard handed it to Marco, who looked to Luca. Luca's voice was firm. Give it to her. Marco brought it to Elena. For a moment, she could not move. Then she took the box and held it against her chest. It was lighter than she remembered. Or maybe she had become too heavy. She sat in the chair near Luca's bed and opened it. Inside were photographs, a small stack of letters, an old silver hair clip, a few grocery receipts with her mother's handwriting on the back, and a folded scarf that still carried the faintest scent of lavender detergent. Elena touched the scarf and broke. Not dramatically, not loudly, just one breath that collapsed into another. Sophia turned away to give her privacy. Marco lowered his gaze. Luca watched from the bed with a look so intense Elena could feel it through her tears. She wiped her face quickly. Don't. I didn't say anything. You were thinking loudly. His mouth twitched again. Then Elena saw something at the bottom of the box. A photograph. She lifted it. Her mother stood in a garden, younger than Elena had ever seen her. Her hair was loose. She was laughing at someone off camera. Beside her stood a man in an expensive black suit. Not Luca. Older. Handsome. Cruel even in stillness. Luca's father. On Marianne's other side stood a teenage boy. Tall, dark-haired, serious. Luca. Elena's breath caught. He looked impossibly young. No scars near his knuckles. No coldness carved into his mouth yet. Just a boy trapped in a world too old for him. But it was the way he looked at Marianne that made Elena's chest tighten. Not with desire. With worship. A wounded boy looking at the only adult in the room who had ever been kind to him. Elena looked up. Luca's face had gone still. You loved her. The words left Elena before she could soften them. Luca's eyes darkened. Sophia inhaled. Marco looked at the floor. Elena's stomach twisted. The room seemed suddenly too small. You loved my mother. Luca's voice was quiet. Yes. Elena stood. The photograph shook in her hand. Not like that, Sophia said quickly. Elena turned on her. Don't. Sophia stopped. Luca did not look away. I loved her because she was the first person in that house who treated me like a child instead of an heir. Elena's breath came unevenly. She was engaged to your father. Yes. And you loved her. As a starving person loves bread, as a drowning person loves air. His expression hardened with shame. Not romantically. Not then. Not ever in the way you think. Elena wanted to believe him. That frightened her. Luca's voice grew lower. She protected me when my mother couldn't. She taught me how to read people who smile before they hurt you. She told me violence was easy and mercy was harder. Elena stared at the photograph. Her mother had never talked about any of this. Not once. My father mistook kindness for weakness, Luca said. Victor mistook it for betrayal. I mistook it for salvation. Elena looked at him. And what am I? The question surprised them both. Luca went silent. The monitor beeped steadily between them. When he answered, his voice was almost too low to hear. The daughter of the woman I failed. Elena's anger faltered. Luca's face was stripped of arrogance now. No boss. No king. No monster. Just the truth. I was supposed to help her, he said. She asked me for one thing before she ran. One thing. Elena's throat tightened. What? To keep my father away from her long enough to disappear. And you did? His eyes closed briefly. Not long enough. Silence. Sophia's face turned toward the window. Marco's jaw clenched. Elena looked down at the photograph again, at her mother laughing in a garden built on blood. What happened? Luca opened his eyes. Victor happened. The name darkened the room. He was my father's advisor, his fixer, his shadow. But he was Belandi by blood through a lesser branch. He believed your mother's escape was an insult to both families. Elena sat slowly. He hunted her? For years. But she survived. She hid well, until she didn't. The words sat between them, unspoken and unbearable. Elena reached into the shoebox again and found another envelope. This one had no name. Only a date. The night before her mother died. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single page. Elena read the first line, then stopped. Her heartbeat slammed once. Hard. Luca noticed immediately. What is it? Elena could not speak. The handwriting was her mother's, rushed and uneven. She forced herself to read aloud. If anything happens to me, Elena must never trust the police report. The room went silent. Elena continued, voice shaking. Victor has a man inside the department. He has been watching us for months. I saw him outside the clinic. I saw him near Elena's school. If I run again, he will follow. If I stay, he will come. Her breath broke. She swallowed and kept reading. I gave the Belandi seal to Elena because no one will search a child for a kingdom. I gave the second key to the boy who still has a soul, if this world has not killed it by then. Elena looked up. Luca's face had gone white. Second key? She whispered. Sophia turned sharply toward Luca. Marco's eyes narrowed. Luca did not move. Elena stood slowly. What second key? Luca's silence returned. But this time, it was different. This was not protection. This was fear. Elena's voice hardened. Luca. His gaze lifted to hers. Elena. No. She stepped closer to the bed. What second key? Sophia moved toward Luca. You never told me there was another. Luca ignored her. His eyes stayed on Elena. I didn't know what had opened. That is not an answer. It was safer buried. Where? His jaw tightened. Luca. The door opened again before he could respond. A younger man entered without knocking. He looked nothing like the guards. No black suit, no earpiece, no weapon visible. He wore a dark coat, rain on his shoulders, and a smile that felt too comfortable in a house full of blood. Marco immediately drew his gun. The young man lifted both hands. Relax. If I wanted to kill him, I'd have waited until the nurse finished saving him. Luca's eyes sharpened. Nico. Elena turned to Luca. Who is he? The man's smile widened. Nico Belandi. The surname struck the room like glass breaking. Elena's grip tightened around her mother's letter. Belandi. Her mother's bloodline. Her bloodline. Nico looked directly at Elena then, and for the first time all night she saw a face that carried something familiar. Not exact, not obvious. But there, in the curve of his eyes, the shape of his smile. Family. It should have comforted her. It didn't. Nico took one slow step closer. Hello, cousin. Luca's voice turned lethal. Do not go near her. Nico glanced at him. Still pretending you can command blood that isn't yours? Marco's gun clicked. Nico ignored it. Elena stared at him. You're Belandi. One of the last. Victor said my mother was the last living daughter. Daughter, yes. Nico's smile sharpened. He enjoys wording things carefully. Elena's stomach twisted. What do you want? Nico looked at the locket in her hand. The same thing everyone wants. Luca tried to sit up. Elena shoved him down without taking her eyes off Nico. Nico laughed softly. She handles you well. I said. Elena repeated. What do you want? His amusement faded, replaced by something colder. I want you to understand that everyone in this house will tell you Victor is the only monster. That's convenient, simple, very dramatic. His eyes flicked to Luca. But your mother wasn't just running from Victor. Elena's puls thunel. Luca's voice cut through the room. Enough. Nico smiled. There it is. Elena looked between them. What is he talking about? Luca's expression was carved from stone. Nico reached into his coat and slowly removed a small velvet pouch. Marco aimed for his chest. Nico paused. It's not a weapon. He tossed it onto the table beside Elena. The pouch landed with a soft thud. Elena did not touch it. What is that? Nico looked at Luca. The second key. The room went deadly quiet. Elena turned slowly toward Luca. His face told her everything. He had it. He had kept it. He had known. Her voice came out empty. You lied again. Luca's eyes flashed with pain. I kept it hidden because it was useless without your locket. And now? Nico answered before Luca could. Now it opens the Belandi archive. Elena looked at him. The chip around your neck holds names, accounts, blackmail, payments, old alliances. But the second key unlocks something much worse. Sophia whispered. Nico, don't. He glanced at her, and his smile returned. Oh, Sophia, still loyal to dead women and doomed boys. Elena stepped toward the pouch. Luca's voice snapped. Don't touch it. She froze. Not because he ordered her. Because there was terror under the command. Real terror. She picked up the pouch anyway. Elena, Luca warned. She opened it. Inside was a small gold ring, heavy and old, engraved with the same broken-winged bird. The Belandi seal. But tucked beneath it was a folded strip of paper. Elena opened it. A string of numbers. Coordinates. And one word written beneath them. Confession. The air changed. Luca closed his eyes. Nico watched Elena like a man waiting for a blade to land. What confession? She asked. Nico's voice softened. The recording your mother made before she died. Elena's heart stopped. There's a recording? Yes. Of what? Nico looked at Luca. This time, even his cruelty seemed quieter. Of the night she made a deal to keep you alive. Elena turned to Luca. His eyes were open now. Raf. Devastated. Tell me he's lying. Luca did not answer. Elena's voice broke. Tell me. He swallowed. He's not. The room blurred. Nico took another step closer, ignoring Marco's gun. Your mother knew Victor would never stop, so she made a deal with the only man more dangerous than him. Elena looked at Luca, but something in her already knew. Not Luca. His father. Luca's face confirmed it. My father, he said. Nico nodded. She agreed to give him the Belandi archive in exchange for your safety, but she tricked him. She split the keys, one with you, one with Luca, and she hid the confession where neither family could reach it without both of you. Elena's fingers closed around the ring. What does the confession say? Nico's smile vanished completely. That your mother's death wasn't just Victor's order. Luca's monitor beeped faster. Sophia whispered, no. Elena felt cold spread through her chest. Nico looked at Luca with open hatred. It was sanctioned by the Moretti name. Elena stepped back. Luca's eyes burned into hers. I did not know. Nico laughed once, sharp and cruel. But you inherited the throne built from it. Elena could not move, could not speak. The man beside her had saved her, lied to her, protected her, claimed her. And his family name might be carved into her mother's grave. Luca reached for her. Elena. She moved away. His hand fell empty against the bed. The pain in his face almost broke her. Almost. Then every phone in the room buzzed at once. Marco checked his screen. His expression changed from anger to alarm. Sophia's phone rang. The guards outside shouted. Somewhere deep inside the mansion, an alarm began to sound. Luca forced himself upright despite Elena's protest. Report. Marco looked at him. Then, at Elena. Victor released a video. Elena's stomach dropped. What video? Marco turned the phone toward her. On the screen was Victor. perfectly dressed, calm, smiling. Behind him, blurred but unmistakable, was Mercy General. The hospital. Her hospital. Victor looked into the camera and spoke softly. Elena Carter has been abducted by Luca Moretti, a known criminal responsible for tonight's massacre at Mercy General. Elena's blood went cold. The video cut to security footage. Edited. Twisted. Luca's men entering the ER. Gunfire. Elena climbing into his SUV, her face clear. His next words made her heart stop. She is armed, unstable, and in possession of stolen evidence tied to multiple murders. Sophia whispered a curse. Victor smiled wider on the screen. If anyone sees her, contact authorities immediately. Do not approach. She is dangerous. Elena stared at the phone. Dangerous. Abducted. Unstable. He had turned her into the story. Before she could process it, another alert came through. Marco read it aloud, voice grim. Citywide warrant requested. Police are moving. Elena looked at Luca. He looked back with the one truth neither of them could escape. Victor had not just hunted her. He had erased Elena Carter from the world and replaced her with a fugitive. Then Nico's phone buzzed. He glanced down. For the first time since entering the room, his face lost color. What? Elena demanded. Nico looked up slowly. It's from Victor. Luca's voice was deadly. Read it. Nico swallowed. Then he turned the phone toward Elena. The message was only one sentence. Tell the princess her first kingdom is already burning. A live video loaded beneath it. Elena pressed play with trembling fingers. The image shook. Smoke. Flashing lights. Rain. Then the camera steadied on a building wrapped in orange flame. Elena's knees went weak. Her apartment. Her home. The closed laundromat below it. The window facing the alley. Everything she had left of her normal life burned while Victor's voice whispered from the speaker. 1 hour was generous. Elena watched her apartment burn on a phone screen. For a moment, she did not hear the alarms. She did not hear the men shouting in the hallway, the rain pounding against the windows, or the monitor beside Luca's bed screaming because he had ripped half his stitches trying to sit up. She saw only flames. Orange light eating the second-floor window, where she used to sit on nights she could not sleep. Smoke pouring from the cracked brick above the laundromat sign. Firefighters moving like ghosts beneath the rain. The place had been ugly, cheap, cold in winter, too hot in summer. The lock barely worked. The pipes screamed. The bedroom ceiling had a brown stain shaped like a country Elena had never visited. But it had been hers. The first place she paid for alone. The first door she closed and locked after burying her mother. The place where she had cried quietly into thrift store pillows and then gotten up at 5 in the morning to save other people's lives. And now it was burning because of a war she had never chosen. The phone slipped from her fingers. Nico caught it before it hit the floor. Elena, Luca said. She did not look at him. If she looked at him, she might break. If she broke, she might never stop. Sophia moved toward her slowly. Your neighbor is safe. Mrs. Alvarez is safe. The box is here. Elena's eyes burned, but no tears came. Something colder than grief settled inside her. My mother's letters were in that apartment. Sophia looked at the shoebox. Some were saved. Not all. No one answered. That was the cruel thing about fire. It did not kill only bodies. It killed proof that you had ever been ordinary. Marco entered with 2 men behind him, both armed, both pale beneath their controlled expressions. Bought with me? With Merrick, with mine. With mine. Liz, he said, police units are moving toward all known Moretti properties. News vans are already outside Mercy General. Victor's people are pushing the abduction story hard. Luca swung his legs over the side of the surgical bed. Elena turned so fast the room seemed to snap with her. If you stand up, I will personally knock you unconscious. His eyes met hers. For once, he did not smile. Elena. No. Her voice shook, but her anger held it upright. You are bleeding through fresh sutures. You have a fever. You lost enough blood to make a normal person dead. You are not walking into a war. Luca's gaze moved over her face, and something in him softened in the most infuriating way. Normal people die easier. Then try being difficult from the bed. Nico laughed under his breath. Luca turned his head slowly. The laugh died. Marco stepped closer. We need to evacuate. No, Luca said. Sophia's eyes sharpened. Luca, he expects us to run. Luca pressed one hand to his ribs, jaw tightening against the pain. He wants police at the gates, media outside, My men split across the city chasing fires. He wants Elena scared enough to hand over the locket. Elena's fingers closed around the pendant at her throat. Nico's voice was quiet now. And if she doesn't? Luca looked at the burning apartment on the phone screen. Then he'll burn something else. The room changed. Not because of the words. Because everyone knew they were true. Elena reached for the trauma bag and pulled out a roll of gauze with hands that were too steady. What do we do? Luca looked at her. Not at Marco. Not at Sofia. At her. You shouldn't have to ask that. I don't care what I should have to do. She stepped to him, pushed his hand away from his wound, and checked the bleeding. Victor made me a fugitive, burned my home, threatened my patients. If I stand still, he decides what I become. Luca's eyes darkened. And what do you want to become? Elena pressed fresh gauze against his side. Someone he regrets touching. Silence fell. Even Nico stopped smiling. Luca watched her like he was seeing the shape of her future and fearing how much he wanted it. Then he said, Marco, lock down the estate. Marco nodded. Already started. Move Sofia and the non-combatants below. Sofia's chin lifted. I am not a non-combatant. You are tonight. She looked ready to argue. Luca's voice hardened. You kept Marianne's secrets alive for 28 years. I need you alive to tell Elena the rest. That stopped her. Elena glanced at Sofia. There was more. Of course, there was more. There was always more. Nico stepped forward. And me? Luca's eyes cut to him. You can leave before I remember how much I dislike you. Nico smiled faintly. You need the second key. I need Elena alive. The key is off. Nico looked at Elena. Is that how you feel too, cousin? The word still struck wrong. Cousin. Family should have felt warm. On Nico's mouth, it sounded like an invitation into a trap. Elena met his eyes. I don't know you. True. And every man who has claimed to protect me tonight has lied. Nico's smile faded. Elena continued. So if you want me to trust you, start by being useful. For the second time, surprise crossed Nico's face. Then admiration. You really are Marianne's daughter. Stop using my mother like a password. His expression changed. A flash of guilt. Quick but real. Before Elena could decide what it meant, a blast shook the house. The windows trembled. The surgical lights flickered. A distant boom rolled through the mansion, followed by shouting from the west wing. Marco touched his earpiece. Perimeter breach. South wall. Luca was on his feet before anyone could stop him. Elena caught his arm, but this time he did not sit. His face had gone bloodless with pain, yet his eyes were clear. War had reached him, and something ancient inside him had opened its eyes. Armor, he said. Marco moved instantly. Elena, stay with Sofia, Luca ordered. She laughed once. No. His gaze snapped to hers. This is not a debate. You're right, it's not. She grabbed the trauma bag. You bleed, I fix it. That's the arrangement. His jaw tightened. The arrangement ends when bullets start. It started at my hospital. A second explosion cracked somewhere outside. The walls shuddered. The alarm changed pitch. Nico crossed to the table and picked up the velvet pouch containing the ring. Victor's not using police first. That means he wants the keys before the city surrounds this place. Sofia moved toward Elena. Come with me, please. Elena looked at her. The older woman's composure had finally fractured. Not from fear for herself. Fear for Elena. For one heartbeat, Elena saw her mother's friend. The woman who had driven Marianne into the dark. The woman who had lost everything because she helped a pregnant woman escape a gilded cage. Elena softened. Then another gunshot cracked from inside the house. Close. Too close. A guard shouted. Then screamed. Luca grabbed Elena and pulled her behind him in one violent motion. The double doors burst open. A man in a police tactical uniform stumbled inside. For half a second Elena thought help had arrived. Then he lifted his rifle toward Luca. Marco fired first. The man dropped. Elena stared at the badge on his chest. Chicago Police. Her stomach turned. Luca's earlier warning echoed through her. Police are never just police in this city. Another officer appeared behind the fallen one. Then another. Not rescuers. Victor's men wearing the law like a costume. The room erupted. Marco shoved Sofia behind a steel cabinet. Nico flipped the surgical table onto its side for cover. Luca dragged Elena down as bullets tore through glass cabinets and sent medication bottles exploding into glittering shards. Elena hit the floor hard. Luca landed half over her, shielding her body with his. She felt the impact of each bullet through him. Not because they struck him, because he did not flinch. He made himself a wall. "Move!" Marco shouted. Luca fired twice from the floor. 2 officers fell back into the hallway. Elena's ears rang. She smelled gunpowder and antiseptic. Luca's blood was on her hands again. "Your stitches opened," she snapped. "Now?" "Yes, now." A bullet punched through the cabinet above them. She ducked. Luca looked almost amused. "You have terrible timing. You have terrible everything." Nico crawled toward them, ring clutched in one hand. "There's an old tunnel under the East Library." Luca's eyes narrowed. "How do you know that?" Nico smiled. Belandi houses were built with escape routes. Moretti men just move in and think walls are loyal. Marco shot another attacker and yelled, "Boss!" More footsteps thundered down the hall. Too many. Luca made a decision. "Elena, listen to me." "No, you haven't heard what I'm going to say. You're going to tell me to run without you." His silence confirmed it. She grabbed the front of his blood-stained shirt. "Try it, and I'll drag you by your stitches." His eyes burned. "Elena, I have lost my mother, my home, my identity, and apparently my legal innocence in one night." Her voice broke through the gunfire. "I am not losing the only person who can tell me why." The words landed between them. Not love, not forgiveness, not trust, but need. Dangerous, undeniable need. Luca stared at her. Then he nodded once. "Stay behind me." "I'm getting tired of that sentence." "Then stay beside me and don't get shot." "Better." Marco threw smoke into the hallway. White clouds exploded outward, swallowing the doorway. They moved. Luca tried to stand alone and nearly fell. Elena ducked under his arm before he could protest, forcing him to lean on her. He was heavier than she expected, all muscle and blood and stubbornness. "Don't enjoy this," he muttered. "You're not that charming." Liar. Despite everything, a breath of laughter escaped her. It vanished the moment they entered the hall. The mansion had become a battlefield. Paintings hung crooked from bullet-shattered walls. Marble floors were streaked with blood and rainwater tracked in from broken doors. Armed men fought in shadows under chandeliers that swung from the force of explosions. A guard Elena had seen at the entrance lay near the staircase, blood spreading beneath him. She stopped instinctively. Luca's arm tightened around her. "Elena." "He's alive." Marco cursed. "We can't." Elena tore away and dropped beside the guard. The man was young, younger than she had realized, maybe 22. His face was gray, one hand pressed weakly to his abdomen. "Hey," she said, pressing harder over the wound. "Look at me." His eyes flickered. "Miss Elena." "My name is Elena. Boss said protect you." Her throat tightened. "You did. Now shut up and breathe." She ripped open a packet of gauze from the trauma bag and packed the wound fast. Gunfire cracked down the hallway. Luca stood over her, firing with one hand, the other clamped to his own side. "Pressure here," Elena told another guard, dragging his hand into place. "Do not let go." The guard nodded. She rose. Luca was staring at her again. "What?" she snapped. "You stop for everyone. That's what separates me from you." The words were cruel. She knew it the second they left her mouth. Luca's face did not change, but something behind his eyes closed. He turned away. "Move." Guilt stabbed through her. She hated that too. They reached the East Library under cover of smoke and gunfire. Nico shoved open a wall panel behind a shelf of old leather books. Cold air breathed from the darkness beyond. Sophia stopped at the entrance. "This tunnel leads to the old chapel." Luca looked at her. "Take Elena." "No," Elena and Luca said at the same time. They looked at each other. For one wild second, in the middle of blood and smoke, something almost like a smile passed between them. Then a voice echoed through the mansion speakers. Zoft. Amused. "Victor." Elena Carter. Everyone froze. The voice filled the halls like poison. Or should I say Elena Belandi? Nico's face tightened. Luca went still in a way that made the air dangerous. Victor continued. "I know you're inside with him. I know he's bleeding. I know he's telling you this is protection." Pause. Then his voice lowered. "Ask yourself why every person who promises to protect you keeps bringing death to your door." Elena's hands curled into fists. Luca looked at the ceiling speaker as if he could kill Victor through sound alone. "Here is my offer," Victor said. "Walk out with the locket and the ring, and I will stop. Your patients live. Your neighbor lives. The hospital stops burning in the news. Your name can still be cleaned. Sophia whispered, "Don't listen." Victor laughed softly, as if he heard her. "If you stay with Luca Moretti, everyone around you becomes a target. Not because of me, princess, because that is what he is. A curse with a handsome face." Elena did not move. The words should not have found anything inside her. But they did. Because every step closer to Luca had cost someone something. Mercy General. Her apartment. The young guard bleeding on marble. Victor's voice turned gentle. "Your mother understood in the end. That's why she ran from the Morettis. That's why she hid you from him." Luca's face turned to stone. "Elena," he said quietly, "look at me." She didn't. "Not yet." Victor whispered through the speakers. "Come to the front gate. Alone. 10 minutes. Or I release the next video." The speaker crackled. Then silence. For a few seconds, the mansion seemed suspended between heartbeats. Nico spoke first. "He's manipulating you." Elena laughed bitterly. "Everyone is manipulating me." Luca stepped closer, but stopped before touching her. That restraint hurt more than his hand would have. "He will kill you," Luca said. "He said he wants me alive. That is not mercy. I know. He will use you to unlock the archive, then bury you beside your mother. I know." "Elena." She finally looked at him. His face was pale, drawn with pain, eyes burning with the kind of fear he could not command away. Not fear of death, fear of losing her. That realization moved through her like a blade. "You think I'm considering it," she said. His silence was answer enough. Elena stepped closer. "I'm not going to him." The tension in his shoulders shifted. "Barely. But I'm also not hiding in a tunnel while other people die for me." Luca's eyes sharpened. "What are you saying?" Elena looked at Nico. "The archive needs both keys?" "Yes. And Victor needs me alive to use them?" Nico hesitated. "Most likely." "Good." Luca's voice turned lethal. "No. I haven't said the plan yet. I know your face when you're about to do something reckless. You've known me for 3 hours, and you've nearly died 6 times. I'm learning quickly." Elena ignored him and turned to Marco. "Can you broadcast something from inside the house? To the police? News? Anyone outside?" Marco looked at Luca. Elena snapped. "Don't look at him. I asked you." Marco blinked. Then, slowly, respect entered his expression. "Yes," he said. "The estate has an emergency media channel. Internal security can push video to outside feeds if we break the jammer." Nico's eyes lit with dangerous understanding. "You want to expose Victor Live. I want him to think I'm surrendering." Luca stepped in front of her. "No." Elena looked up at him. He towered over her even injured. All blood, fury, and impossible control. But she was done being moved like a piece on someone else's board. "You said I had a choice." His jaw tightened. "I regret that. Too late. He will have snipers. Then hide me from them. He will have police bought. Then show the world before they touch me. He will have a backup plan. So will we." Luca's eyes searched hers. "You're not trained for this." "No." Elena's voice steadied. "I'm trained to keep people alive while everything falls apart." That silenced him. Sophia stepped forward. "Marianne would hate this." Elena turned to her. "My mother hid me so I could live. Not so I could spend the rest of my life running from the man who killed her." Sophia's eyes filled. Elena looked down at the locket, then at the ring in Nico's hand. "I want the confession." Nico nodded once. "Then we need the chapel." Luca looked at him sharply. Nico lifted the ring. "The coordinates point under the old Bolandi chapel. If Victor knows about it, he'll move there next. If we get there first, we get the recording." Marco touched his earpiece again. "Boss, more units at the north gate. We have maybe 5 minutes before they push through." Luca looked at Elena. The room waited for him. But this time, Elena saw the war inside him. The instinct to command. The need to protect. The fear that protection would become another cage. Slowly, painfully, Luca stepped aside. "Not surrender. Trust." 5 minutes, he said. "We make him believe you're coming out. Then we disappear through the tunnel and get the confession." Elena nodded. Marco moved fast, issuing orders. Sophia took the shoebox and Elena's mother's letters into a fireproof bag. Nico opened the hidden panel wider. Guards repositioned through the mansion. Luca swayed. Elena caught him again. He looked down at her hand on his chest. "You should go ahead. And you should stop talking." "Elena." She looked up. His voice was low, stripped of command. If this goes wrong, it won't. If it does, he continued, you run. You do not come back for me. She smiled without warmth. You really don't listen. I'm serious. Suawi. His eyes darkened. There are things worse than death. Imed Victor. I know. No. Luca's hand lifted, brushing a strand of wet hair from her cheek. His fingers were warm, trembling slightly. You don't. The touch was gentle. Too gentle for a man like him. Elena hated that she leaned into it for half a second before remembering herself. What did he do to you? She whispered. Luca's face closed. But before he could answer, the house speakers crackled again. Not Victor this time. A woman's voice. Old. Shaking. Elena? Elena froze. Her blood went cold. That voice. No. Impossible. The room seemed to vanish. The speakers crackled with static, then the voice came again. Elena, baby. Can you hear me? The trauma bag slipped from Elena's hand. Sophia covered her mouth. Luca went utterly still. Nico whispered, That's not possible. Elena's heart pounded so hard it hurt. Because the voice coming through the speakers sounded exactly like her mother, Elena Carter. Dead for 12 years. Calling her name from inside Victor's trap. Victor's voice followed, soft with satisfaction. I told you the next video would hurt. A screen on the library wall flickered on. At first there was only darkness. Then an image appeared. A woman tied to a chair in a dim room, her gray-streaked hair loose around her face, her mouth trembling, her eyes swollen from crying. Not Elena's mother. Mrs. Alvarez. Elena's knees almost gave. Victor had used an old recording of Marianne's voice. Then shown her the woman who had saved the shoebox. Mrs. Alvarez looked into the camera, terrified but alive. Elena, she whispered. Don't come. Please don't come. Elena's vision blurred red. Luca reached for her. This time, she let him. Not because she needed comfort. Because if he did not hold her still, she might run straight into hell. Victor appeared behind Mrs. Alvarez and rested one hand on the old woman's shoulder. 10 minutes, he said. Then he looked directly into the camera. And Luca, if you're still breathing, understand this. He smiled. I'm going to make her choose who dies first. The screen went black. For 1 second no one moved. Then Elena turned to Luca. Every trace of fear had burned out of her face. Only fury remained. We're not disappearing. Luca's eyes held hers. Elena. No. Her voice was quiet now. Steady. Final. He has Mrs. Alvarez. He wants you to react. Then he knows me. This is exactly what he planned. Then make a better plan. Luca stared at her. And slowly, dangerously, something in his expression changed. The protective man vanished. The wounded king returned. Not against her. For here. He looked at Marco. Get me a vest. Elena grabbed his arm. You can barely stand. Luca's eyes stayed on Marco. And every gun we have. Marco nodded once and ran. Sophia stepped forward. Luca, if you go out there like this, I'm not going out there like this. He looked at Elena. We are. Elena's pulse. Slamil. Nico smiled slowly. Now that sounds like a Luca Moretti disaster. Luca ignored him. Elena, Victor wants you at the gate. We give him what he wants. Sophia went pale. No. Luca continued, voice gaining force. But not alone. Not helpless. Not as prey. His eyes burned into Elena's. You walk out with the locket. Nico walks with the ring. I stay hidden until Victor exposes his position. Elena understood. And Mrs. Alvarez? My men extract her the second he looks at you. He'll kill her. Not if he needs you watching. The brutality of the logic sickened her. But it was true. Victor liked theater. So they would give him a stage. Elena looked at Nico. Can you unlock the confession fast? If we survive long enough to reach the chapel. Comforting. I tree. Marco returned with a black tactical vest. Luca tried to put it on and nearly collapsed. Elena shoved his hands away and strapped it over him herself. Her fingers moved over hard armor, torn bandages, warm skin. He watched her the entire time. You're angry, he said. I passed angry when he burned my home. At me. Elena tightened one strap harder than necessary. He winced. Yes. Good. She looked up sharply. Luca's voice lowered. Stay angry. Fear freezes. Anger moves. Her throat tightened. You always talk like someone taught you pain was useful. Someone did. The answer cut through her fury. For one heartbeat they stood too close, surrounded by war, both of them held together by things broken long before tonight. Then Marco handed Elena a smaller vest. Luca took it and moved behind her. She stiffened as his hands settled at her shoulders. "I can do it, I know." But he buckled it anyway. Not possessively this time. Carefully. Like every strap was a promise he was terrified he might fail. When he finished, his hand lingered at the back of her neck. Elena closed her eyes for half a breath, then opened them. "Don't die before I decide whether I hate you." His mouth brushed near her ear, voice rough. "I'll do my best." The front gate exploded before they reached the foyer. The force threw dust from the ceiling and shattered every remaining window on the first floor. Cold rain and smoke rushed through the mansion like a living thing. Men shouted. Gunfire answered. The war had entered the house. Luca grabbed Elena's hand. This time, she held on first. They ran into chaos. The foyer was a nightmare of muzzle flashes and marble dust. Police lights strobed through broken doors. Masked attackers poured through the smoke. Moretti guards fired from behind pillars, dragging wounded men back between shots. Elena saw one attacker raise his gun toward Sofia. She did not think. She grabbed a fallen metal tray and hurled it with all her strength. It struck his wrist. The shot went wide. Marco took him down. Sofia stared at Elena. Elena shouted, "Move!" Nico laughed from somewhere behind her. "Definitely Belandi." They pushed through the east corridor toward the tunnel, but Victor's men had already found part of it. Smoke poured from the hidden passage entrance. Marco cursed. Blocked. Luca's eyes narrowed. Chapel access? Only through the garden. Outside. Through the open grounds. Through rain, police, snipers, and Victor. Elena looked at Luca. He looked back. Neither said what they both understood. The plan was dead. Only instinct remained. Then, Victor's voice echoed from outside through a megaphone. "Elena, time is running out." On a monitor near the security wall, Mrs. Alvarez appeared again, tied to the chair, a gun now pressed to her temple. Elena's breath stopped. Victor stood behind her, smiling beneath an umbrella. He was outside the front gate, close enough to see, close enough to hate, close enough to kill. Luca looked at Marco. "Snipers?" "2 confirmed, maybe more." "Nico." Nico lifted the ring. "Still here." Luca turned to Elena. "This becomes ugly now." She looked at the screen. Mrs. Alvarez was crying silently, shaking her head. Elena remembered her knocking on the ceiling with a broom whenever Elena came home too late. Remembered warm soup left outside her door when she had the flu. Remembered a wrinkled hand squeezing hers after her mother's funeral. Elena lifted her chin. "It was ugly the moment he touched my family." Luca's eyes changed at that word. Family. He did not correct her. He simply handed her a small earpiece. "Stay on the line. You're going somewhere." "Yes." "Where?" "To give Victor something else to look at." Before Elena could stop him, Luca turned to Marco. "Take her through the service hall. Get eyes on Mrs. Alvarez. Do not let Elena out of your reach." Elena grabbed Luca's wrist. "No more sacrificing yourself." His hand turned, fingers closing around hers. "Elena." There was something in his voice she had not heard before. Not command. Not warning. "Goodbye." Her chest tightened. "No." He leaned in, his forehead almost touching hers. "If he gets you, your mother dies for nothing. And if you die?" His eyes searched her face. For once, Luca Moretti had no answer. That terrified her more than anything. Then he kissed her forehead. Brief. Fierce. Almost reverent. Elena froze. By the time she breathed again, he was gone, moving into smoke with a gun in each hand, bleeding, limping, impossible. Marco pulled her back as she tried to follow. "No." "He gave an order," Marco said. "I don't care." "I do." Marco's voice cracked. Elena looked at him. For the first time, she saw not just a guard, but a man who loved Luca like family, and was terrified he had just watched him walk into death. "Then help me save him," she said. Marco stared at her. Something shifted. He nodded. They ran. Through the service hall, past kitchens where staff huddled beneath tables, past shattered windows and smoke alarms, past men speaking into radios and bleeding through their sleeves. Nico kept pace beside her, ring in hand. Sofia followed with the fireproof bag clutched to her chest. Outside, the rain hit like ice. The garden stretched between the mansion and the old chapel, all black hedges, stone paths, and flickering security lights. Gunfire burst from the front of the estate. Luca's distraction. Elena's earpiece crackled. Then his voice came through, strained but steady. Victor. A distant speaker amplified the word outside. Elena stopped near a stone wall and looked through the rain. Luca stood in the open courtyard. Alone. Blood darkening his side. Gun raised but not aimed. Victor stood beyond the ruined gate with Mrs. Alvarez held in front of him. Police lights flashed behind them. Cameras hovered at the perimeter. The city was watching. Victor smiled. Still alive. Disappointing. Luca's voice carried through the storm. You wanted a show. Victor pressed the gun closer to Mrs. Alvarez's head. I wanted the girl. You always wanted things you couldn't keep. Victor's smile fed. Elena's earpiece hissed with Marco's whisper. We have one shot. When Victor turns fully toward Luca, I can send 2 men around the east wall. Elena looked at the chapel, then at Mrs. Alvarez, then at Luca, standing like a wounded king before an army. No, she whispered. Marco looked at her. No? Elena turned to Nico. The confession. Can it broadcast? Nico's eyes narrowed. Maybe, if the chapel system still works. Get it? Elena. Get it? Nico ran toward the chapel with Sofia. Marco reached for Elena, but she had already stepped out from behind the wall. Elena, he hissed. She walked into the rain. Straight into the lights. Straight into the cameras. Straight into Victor's line of sight. Luca saw her. His face changed completely. For the first time, she saw terror tear through him without disguise. No, he said into the earpiece. Elena kept walking. Victor turned and smiled. There she is. The cameras swung toward her. The police shouted. Marco cursed behind her. Luca's voice in her ear was low and broken. Elena, stop. She did not. The locket rested cold against her chest. Rain washed blood from her hands. She lifted both arms slowly, empty palms visible. Victor watched her approach with satisfaction spreading across his face. Smart girl. Elena stopped halfway between Luca and Victor. Close enough to see Mrs. Alvarez's trembling lips. Close enough for the cameras to capture her face. Close enough for the whole city to hear when she spoke. My name is Elena Carter, she said, voice shaking at first, then growing stronger. And Victor is lying. Victor's expression twitched. Luca went still. Elena pulled the locket from beneath her vest. This is what he wants. Not because I'm unstable. Not because I killed anyone. Because it proves who did. Victor's gun shifted. Careful, princess. The nickname no longer made her flinch. Behind her, the chapel bells suddenly rang. Once, deep and violent through the storm. Then every outdoor speaker on the estate crackled. A woman's voice filled the night. Elena Carter. Younger. Breathless. Terrified. If this recording is found, my name is Marianne Belandi, and Victor Drazen is the man hunting my daughter. The entire courtyard froze. Victor's face drained of color. Luca turned toward the chapel. Elena's heart stopped. Nico had found it. Her mother's voice continued, echoing over police radios, media cameras, Moretti speakers, and the storm itself. Victor is not acting alone. He has men inside the police department, inside the courts, inside the Moretti house. If I die, it will be because I refuse to give him my child's inheritance. Victor screamed, Cut it off! No one moved fast enough. The recording kept playing. I split the archive between my daughter and Luca Moretti because Luca is the only one in that house who ever tried to help me. Elena looked at Luca. His eyes were wet, or maybe it was only rain. Her mother's voice broke. Luca, if you hear this, I'm sorry, you were just a boy. I should never have put this on you. Luca closed his eyes. For 1 second, the monster vanished. Only the boy remained. Then Victor fired. The shot cracked through the courtyard. Elena felt Luca move before she understood. He crossed the distance between them like death itself. The bullet hit him instead of her. His body slammed into hers, taking her down to the wet stone. Elena screamed, not from fear, from rage, from the sound of Luca's breath leaving him, from his blood spreading warm across her hands again. Mrs. Alvarez dropped as Marco's men surged from the side and tackled Victor's guard. Police scattered. Cameras shook. Moretti men opened fire, not at the police, but at Victor's masked shooters hidden among them. Chaos erupted. But Elena saw only Luca. He lay over her, eyes half open, blood at his mouth. Luca, she sobbed. His hand found her face. You were supposed to stay behind me. She pressed both hands to the wound high on his chest. And you were supposed to stop getting shot. His mouth twitched. Then his eyes drifted past her. Victor was running. Not toward the gate. Toward the chapel. Toward Nico. Toward the recording. Elena saw it the same second Luca did. His hand closed weakly around her wrist. Go. No, Elena. I'm not leaving you. His eyes burned into hers. If he destroys it, your mother dies again. The words shattered her. Behind them, Marianne's recording continued, crackling through rain and gunfire. Everything he fears is in the archive. The names, the payments, the murders, the proof. Elena pressed harder on Luca's chest. He winced, but did not look away. Go, he whispered. This time, it was not an order. It was trust. Elena bent close, her tears falling onto his face. Don't, Dee. His fingers brushed her cheek. Come back and make sure I don't. She tore herself away. Every step toward the chapel felt like betrayal. Marco dropped beside Luca as Elena ran. I've got him. She did not look back. If she looked back, she would never move again. The old chapel door stood open, light spilling from within. Nico was inside near the altar, one hand on an ancient metal panel hidden beneath cracked stone. Sophia stood beside him, holding the fireproof bag and pointing a gun with both hands. Victor entered from the side door. Blood ran down his temple. His perfect gray coat was torn. His smile was gone. At last the mask had slipped, and beneath it was nothing elegant. Only hatred. You stupid girl, he said. Elena stopped at the aisle entrance. Rainwater dripped from her hair onto the old stone floor. My mother said something similar when I tried cutting my own bangs at 7. Nico looked at her like she was insane. Victor lifted his gun. Sophia aimed hers at him. Elena, Sophia warned. But Elena kept walking. The recording played from hidden chapel speakers, her mother's voice trembling but unbroken. I loved my daughter enough to make enemies of kings. Victor's eyes flicked to the locket. Give it to me. No. I will kill every person in this chapel. Elena's voice was steady. You were going to do that anyway. For the first time, Victor looked truly angry. Your mother had that same arrogance. No, Elena said. My mother had courage. You just couldn't tell the difference. Victor fired at the speaker above the altar. Sparks exploded. The recording cut out. Silence slammed through the chapel. Then Nico smiled. Too late. He lifted a small drive from the panel. The confession already uploaded. Victor turned his gun toward him. Sophia fired first. The shot hit Victor's shoulder. He staggered back, roaring in pain, then lunged toward Elena with terrifying speed. She barely moved in time. He slammed into her, knocking her against a pew. Pain burst through her ribs. The locket tore from her neck and skidded across the floor. Elena! Nico shouted. Victor grabbed her by the throat. His eyes were wild now. No charm. No theater. Just the man who had killed her mother and burned her life because he could not own what was never his. You should have stayed a nurse, he hissed. Elena clawed at his wrist. Still. Then she drove the syringe from her trauma bag into his side and pushed the plunger down. Victor froze. His eyes widened. Elena gasped against his grip. Sedative, she choked. Large dose. Nico stared. Sophia whispered, Marianne's daughter. Victor stumbled back, trying to lift the gun. His hand shook. Elena kicked his knee. He dropped. Not unconscious yet, but weakened, furious, human. Elena picked up the locket with trembling fingers. Outside, sirens screamed louder. Inside, Victor crawled toward his gun. Elena reached it first. She picked it up and aimed at him. Her hands shook. Victor laughed from the floor, breath ragged. You won't shoot me. Elena stared at him. She saw her apartment burning. Mrs. Alvarez crying. Luca falling. Her mother's letter shaking in her hands. You're right, she said. Then she lowered the gun. Victor smiled, until Marco appeared behind him and struck him hard across the back of the head. Victor collapsed onto the stone floor. Marco stood over him, breathing hard, blood on his sleeve. Elena looked behind him. Luca? Marco's face changed. Everything inside her stopped. No, she whispered. He's alive, Marco said quickly. Elena almost collapsed from relief. Then his voice roughened, but barely. She ran, out of the chapel, into the rain, across the courtyard where police were shouting, cameras were still rolling, and the Moretti estate burned in places beneath the storm. Luca was on the ground where she had left him, surrounded by men who looked terrified because their king was bleeding out and none of them knew how to stop it. Elena dropped beside him. Move, she ordered. Everyone moved. Luca's eyes opened when he heard her voice. Barely. There you are, he whispered. She pressed both hands to his wound. I told you not to die. I'm trying to impress you. You're failing. His mouth curved faintly. Then his breathing hitched. Elena looked at Marco. I need transport now. Hospital, private clinic, anything with blood and a surgeon. Marco nodded, shouting orders. Luca's hand found hers. Elena. No, save your strength. Did you get it? She swallowed hard. Yes. His eyes softened. Good. Don't you dare sound relieved. We are not done. Rain fell between them. Sirens screamed. The city watched. And Luca Moretti, the man everyone feared, looked up at Elena Carter like she was the only thing worth seeing as darkness pulled at him. Elena, he whispered. I'm here. His grip weakened. The panic that hit her was pure and animal. Luca. His lips parted. For one terrifying second, she thought he was going to say goodbye. Instead, he whispered, Still mine? Elena's breath broke. She leaned down, forehead against his, hands covered in his blood. No, she whispered. His eyes flickered. Then she said, Still alive. Then we'll argue about the rest. A faint smile touched his mouth. Then his eyes closed. The monitor beside the emergency transport unit screamed as they loaded him in. Elena climbed in after him without hesitation. Behind them, Victor lay unconscious in the chapel he had tried to turn into a grave. Above them, Marianne Carter's confession spread across every screen in Chicago. And in Elena's hands, Luca's blood would not stop coming. The ambulance smelled like blood, rainwater, and burning electricity. Elena knelt beside Luca as the vehicle tore through the private road, sirens screaming into the storm. Marco sat across from her, one hand braced against the wall, the other pressing gauze against Luca's chest. His face was hard, but his eyes betrayed him. Fear. Not for himself. For the man on the stretcher. Luca Moretti lay too still. That was what terrified Elena most. Not the blood. Not the bullet lodged dangerously close to his lung. Not the way the pressure dressing turned red faster than she could replace it. The stillness. Luca was not built for stillness. He was command, violence, arrogance, gravity. A man who made rooms obey him before he spoke. Now machines spoke for him. Beep, beep, beep. Too fast. Too weak. Elena leaned over him, both hands slick with blood. Stay with me, she said. His lashes did not move. She pressed harder against the wound. Luca, I swear to God, if you die after making me climb into your nightmare, I will drag you back just to kill you myself. Marco looked at her. That may be the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to him. Elena shot him a look. Do not make jokes right now. His mouth tightened. If I stop, I might fall apart. That shut her up. The ambulance hit a turn hard. Elena nearly lost her balance. But Marco caught her elbow with his free hand. We're close, he said. To what? A private surgical center. Legal. He stared at her. Elena exhaled sharply. Stupid question. Outside the small back window, Chicago blurred into streaks of red, blue, and rain. Police sirens wailed somewhere behind them, but they were fading now. Luca's convoy had split into 3 different directions, swallowing pursuit into the city like ink in water. Elena had no idea where Sophia was. No idea where Nico had gone with the confession drive. No idea whether Mrs. Alvarez was truly safe. No idea if Victor had woken up yet. All she had was Luca's blood under her nails and the sound of his heart trying to quit. Pressure's falling, Marco said. I know. Elena. I know. Her voice cracked on the second word. She hated it. Hated that Marco heard. Hated that Luca didn't. She leaned close to Luca's ear, lowering her voice. You don't get to leave me with all these answers. I don't know how to survive. Do you hear me? You don't get to be the man my mother trusted and then disappear before I understand why. Nothing. Only the monitor. Beep. Beep. Then Luca's fingers twitched. Barely. Against her wrist. Elena froze. Luca? His lips parted. No sound came. She bent lower. What? His voice was less than a breath. Don't cry. Elena's eyes burned instantly. I'm not. His eyes opened just a fraction. Even half dead, he somehow managed to look unconvinced. Liar. A broken laugh escaped her. Then his eyes closed again. The ambulance doors flew open seconds later. Men pulled the stretcher out into a covered underground entrance. White lights flashed overhead. Medical staff waited in masks and gowns, moving fast, efficient, silent. Not Mercy General. Not the world Elena knew. This place was hidden beneath an old luxury hotel, behind reinforced doors, guarded elevators, and men with guns who stepped aside the moment they saw Luca's face. A surgeon in gray scrubs approached. Older. Calm. Sharp-eyed. "Elena Carter?" he asked. She blinked. "Yes. I'm Dr. Santoro," Sophia called ahead. "You're assisting." Marco stiffened. "She's been through enough." Elena looked at him, then at Luca. "I'm assisting." Dr. Santoro nodded once, as if that was the only answer he expected. They moved Luca into surgery. After that, the night became bright lights and blood. Elena scrubbed in with hands that would not stop shaking until she forced them still. She stood beside Dr. Santoro as they opened Luca's chest, suctioned blood, clamped vessels, searched for the bullet that had gone deeper than anyone wanted to admit. Every time Luca's pressure dropped, Elena felt something inside her drop with it. Every time the monitor screamed, she heard the way he had whispered "still mine," in the rain, like a dying man, asking permission to hope. She hated him. She did. For lying. For controlling. For bringing her into a war that burned her home, and stole her name from the world. But hate was too small for what sat in her chest now. Too simple. Too clean. What she felt for Luca Moretti was a wound that refused to decide whether it wanted to bleed or heal. 3 hours later, Dr. Santoro dropped the bullet into a metal tray. It landed with a tiny sound. Almost nothing. A piece of metal small enough to hold between 2 fingers. Small enough to end an empire. Elena stared at it. That nearly killed him? Dr. Santoro did not look up. Bullets don't need to be large, only lucky. Elena swallowed. Is he going to live? The surgeon's hands kept moving. I don't make promises in operating rooms. Make one anyway. He glanced at her over his mask. For a second, something like sympathy entered his eyes. He has survived things that should have killed him long before tonight. That's not an answer. No. Dr. Santoro tied off a stitch. But it is a pattern. By dawn, Luca was alive. Barely, but alive. Elena stood outside the recovery room in borrowed black clothes Sophia had brought her. Her blood-stained scrubs had been sealed in a plastic bag, though she wasn't sure why she kept them. Evidence. Memory. Proof she had existed before the night took her apart. Her hair was damp and tangled. Her arms ached. There was dried blood beneath one fingernail she could not scrub clean. Sophia approached, carrying 2 paper cups of coffee. Elena accepted one, but did not drink. "How is Mrs. Alvarez?" Elena asked. "Safe. Angry. Refusing to rest until she sees you." Despite everything, Elena almost smiled. "That sounds like her. She said you owe her a new kitchen knife." Elena's throat tightened. Sophia's face softened. "Your apartment is gone. But the firefighters contained the lower floor. No one died. No one died. It should have felt like mercy. Instead, it felt like a debt." Elena looked through the glass at Luca. He lay pale beneath white sheets, wires attached to his chest, oxygen beneath his nose, bandages wrapped across his torso. Without the black clothes, the guns, the guards, the storm around him, he looked younger. Not innocent. Never that. But human. Sophia followed her gaze. "He will hate that you are seeing him like this." "Good." A faint smile touched Sophia's mouth. "You are very angry with him." "Yes. And afraid for him." Elena said nothing. Sophia did not push. For several minutes they stood in quiet. Then Elena asked, "Did my mother love him?" Sophia's expression changed. "Elena, I need the truth." Sophia looked through the glass. "Your mother loved the boy he was. Not as a man. Not as a lover. She loved him the way a kind person loves a child left too long in the dark." Elena nodded slowly. "And your father?" Sophia's face tightened. Luca's father wanted to own Marianne. She was beautiful, yes. But more than that, she was Belandi. Through her, he could claim legitimacy over families that still saw him as a butcher with money. And Victor? Victor wanted the Belandi empire restored under his hand. He believed your mother was the last clean key to that throne. Elena looked down at her coffee. "And me?" Sophia's voice softened. "You were the thing none of them expected." Elena looked up. Sophia met her eyes. "Marianne got pregnant after she ran." The words landed quietly, but they shook everything. Elena's pulse slowed. "My father," she whispered. Sophia nodded once. "He was not Moretti, not Belandi, not anyone from this world. Elena's hand trembled around the cup. Who was he? A paramedic. Daniel Carter. Elena stopped breathing. Carter. Her last name. Not a fake name. Not entirely. My mother named me after him? She loved him. Elena's eyes filled before she could stop them. Sophia continued, gentle but firm. He helped her disappear. He helped deliver you when she refused to go to a hospital. He held you before any of us did. What happened to him? Sophia looked away. Elena already knew, but still, she needed to hear it. Victor found him first. The cup bent in Elena's hand. Coffee spilled over her fingers. She barely felt the burn. He killed my father too. Yes. The hallway seemed to stretch around her. Mother. Father. Home. Identity. Every loss had a name now. Every wound had a hand behind it. Victor. The grief did not break her this time. It hardened. Elena set the ruined cup on a nearby table. Where is Nico? Sophia's eyes sharpened slightly. Why? Because he has the confession. He uploaded copies through the chapel system before escaping. Parts of it are already spreading online. News stations are fighting over it. Police command is denying involvement. Judges are resigning before anyone asks them questions. Good. Sophia studied her. Elena, revenge feels clean from a distance. Elena looked at Luca through the glass. Does it? Sophia fell silent. The door at the end of the hallway opened. Marco entered with a tablet in one hand and exhaustion carved into his face. Victor escaped custody. The air turned cold. Elena slowly turned. What? Marco's jaw clenched. The officers who took him from the chapel never booked him. They disappeared between the estate and central processing. Sophia cursed softly. Elena felt nothing for 1 second. Then, everything. A sharp, clear fury that burned away the last traces of shock. He's still out there. Yes. And now he knows the confession is public. Marco nodded. He'll run, Sophia said. Elena shook her head. No. Both of them looked at her. Elena stared at Luca through the glass. He won't run. Not yet. Men like Victor don't run when they're exposed. They try to destroy the person who exposed them. Marco's expression changed. Because she was right. And because she no longer sounded like the nurse who had been dragged from Mercy General in blood-stained scrubs. She sounded like someone learning the language of war. Where is the full archive? Elena asked. Marco hesitated. Elena looked at him. Do not make me ask twice. Something almost like pride flickered across his face. The locket chip has half the access sequence. Nico has the ring. Together they open an encrypted Belandi vault. Where? Nico knows. Fin him. Sophia stepped closer. Elena, Luca would not want you making moves while he is unconscious. Elena turned to her. For the first time, Sophia went quiet under her stare. I am done living by what men want while they bleed, lie, murder, and call it protection. Marco lowered his eyes to hide a smile. Sophia did not smile, but she did nod. Elena, a rough voice called from inside the recovery room. Every nerve in her body reacted. She turned. Luca was awake. Barely. His eyes were open, dark and fevered, fixed on her through the glass. Elena walked in before anyone could stop her. The room was dim, quiet, filled with machines and the sterile scent of survival. Luca watched her approach. You changed, he said. Elena looked down at the borrowed black clothes. Sophia brought them. No, his voice was hoarse. Not that. She stopped beside his bed. For a moment neither spoke. Then Elena said, Victor escaped. His eyes sharpened instantly. He won't get far. He doesn't need far. He needs one more move. Luca tried to sit up. Elena pressed one hand to his shoulder. Don't. His jaw tightened. You need to heal. I need to end this. I am ending this. The room went silent. Luca's eyes searched hers. No. Elena laughed softly. Not bitter this time. Almost amazed. You have got to find a new word. Elena. No. She leaned closer. You said my mother trusted you because you were the only person in that house who still had a soul. Then trust that I have one too. Trust that I can decide what to do with the truth she left me. This is not your world. It became my world when Victor burned my home. I can protect you from him. You can barely breathe. His pride flashed. So did pain. Elena softened despite herself. She sat on the edge of the bed and took his hand carefully, avoiding the IV line. I'm not saying I don't need you. His expression shifted. That landed deeper than she expected. I'm saying I'm not hiding behind you. Luca looked at their hands. His thumb moved weakly over her knuckles. You should hate me. I still might. Good. You keep saying that. Because hate is safer than what you feel when you look at me like that. Elena's breath caught. There it was again. The dangerous pull. The thing between them that had survived gunfire, secrets, grief, betrayal, and blood. She should have stood up. She didn't. Instead, she whispered, "And what do I feel?" Luca's eyes darkened. Like you're wondering if the monster can be held without cutting you. Her throat tightened. And can he? His voice dropped. No. The honesty hurt. Then his fingers tightened around hers. But he can learn where not to place the blade. Elena stared at him, furious that words from a man like him could make her chest ache. You're very dramatic for someone attached to oxygen. A faint smile touched his mouth. There she is. The door opened before she could answer. Nico walked in without permission. Marco immediately reached for his gun. Nico lifted both hands. Everyone really needs to stop greeting family like this. Elena stood. Luca's eyes went cold. You have 3 seconds to explain why you're here. Nico looked at Elena, not Luca. Because Victor just contacted me. Luca's monitor spiked. Elena held up a hand before he could move. What did he say? Nico's smile was gone. He wants a trade. No, Luca said. Elena ignored him. What trade? Nico pulled a phone from his pocket and placed it on the table. A video played. Victor stood in a private hangar, one shoulder bandaged badly, face bruised from Marco's blow. But his eyes were still bright with that poisonous calm. Behind him stood 3 people. Dr. Reeves, the young nurse from Mercy General, and Mrs. Alvarez. Elena's blood turned to ice. Luca's voice became deadly. I thought she was safe. Marco looked horrified. She was. I had 4 men. Victor spoke from the screen. Elena, I know you're watching. You have something of mine. I have something of yours. Bring the locket. Bring the ring. Bring no Moretti army. Or I start with the doctor. Dr. Reeves tried to speak, but a man struck him across the face. Elena flinched. The video continued. You wanted the world to know the truth. Fine, let them know. But truth does not stop bullets. Truth does not stop fire. Truth does not save old women who should have minded their business. Mrs. Alvarez lifted her chin despite tears on her face. Don't come, Mia. Victor smiled and touched her hair. Elena's vision went red. The video ended. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Luca ripped the IV from his arm. Elena turned on him. Are you insane? Yes. Sit down. No. He swung his legs over the bed, face white with pain. Elena shoved him back, but he caught her wrist. Not hard. Not enough to hurt. Enough to stop her. I failed your mother, he said, voice rough. I will not fail you. Something broke in her expression. You think saving me means bleeding harder than everyone else. His eyes burned. If that is what it takes. That is not protection, Luca. That is punishment. The words hit him. Hard. For the first time he looked away. Elena turned to Marco. Where is the hangar? Marco hesitated. Private airfield outside the city. 20 minutes. Luca's voice cut in. We go heavy. Full team. No negotiation. No, Elena said. Everyone looked at her. She took the locket from beneath her shirt and placed it beside Nico's ring on the table. Victor wants the keys. He wants me emotional. He wants Luca reckless. So we give him all 3 things. Luca stared at her. What are you planning? Elena looked at Nico. Can you duplicate the access signal from the locket and ring? Nico's brows lifted. Maybe. Maybe it's not useful. His smile returned faintly. Yes. How long? 10 minutes with the right equipment. Marco nodded. We have it, Elena continued. Then we give Victor fake keys. Luca's eyes narrowed. And the real archive? We open it first. Nico's smile widened. Now you're thinking like family. Elena looked at him coldly. Don't enjoy it. Sophia stepped into the doorway. She had heard everything. The archive contains names that can collapse half the city. Good, Elena said. Sophia's gaze deepened. And some names may not be enemies you expect. Elena looked at Luca. His face was unreadable. Then we stop protecting monsters just because they sit on familiar thrones. Silence. Then Luca smiled. Not the cold smile that terrified men. Something darker, prouder, more dangerous. There she is, he murmured. Elena pointed at him. You are staying in bed. No. You are not useful if you die in the first 5 minutes. I disagree. You would. Marco coughed into his fist. Luca glared at him. Elena stepped closer to Luca. You want to protect me? Yes. Then survive long enough to stand beside me when this is over. His expression changed. The whole room felt it. Not a command. Not a plea. A promise offered to a man who had spent his life thinking death was easier than being needed. Luca looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly, he leaned back against the pillows. Marco looked genuinely stunned. Nico whispered, "Miracles happen." Luca said, "Speak again, and I'll have you buried under the chapel." Nico smiled. There he is. Elena turned away before Luca could see the relief on her face. The next hour transformed her. Not gently, not symbolically, completely. Nico and Marco opened the Belandi archive from a secure room beneath the surgical center. Elena watched as decades of corruption unfolded across screens. Names, payments, shipping routes, police badges, judges, city councilmen, executives, medical board officials, men who smiled on television, men who shook hands at charity dinners, men who signed death warrants in quiet rooms and called it business. And there, buried in a file labeled Carter, Daniel, was the report. Her father's murder. Not an accident. Not a robbery. A targeted execution, ordered by Victor and concealed by officers still wearing badges. Elena read it once. Then again. Then she stopped crying forever. Something in her went very still. Luca watched from a chair because Elena had threatened to sedate him if he stood. He said nothing. He only remained there, pale and wounded, letting her see every ugly truth without trying to soften it. When she reached her mother's file, her hands trembled. Marianne Carter. Mariana Belandi. Mother. Fugitive. Witness. Daughter of a dead empire. The final document was a photo of Elena as a child, taken from across the street outside her elementary school. Age 7. Backpack too big. Hair in crooked braids. Beside it was a note in Victor's handwriting. Asset remains under observation. Elena closed the file. The room went silent. Luca's voice was low. Elena. She looked at him. I was never hidden, she said. I was waiting. No one corrected her. Because it was true. Victor had not lost her. He had delayed claiming her. Elena stood. Send it? Marco looked at Luca. Luca did not answer. He looked at Elena. Marco corrected himself and looked back to her. To who? Elena's voice was calm. Everyone. Sophia inhaled. Nico's smile was slow and vicious. Marco nodded. All newsrooms, federal contacts, international servers, backup drops. If anyone tries to delete one, 10 more go live. Good. Sophia studied Elena with something like grief and awe. You understand what happens after this? Elena looked at the screens full of monsters. They stop hiding. No, Sophia said softly. They start hunting. Elena picked up the fake locket Nico had prepared, identical to the real one. Then let them come out into the light. At the airfield, the storm had finally thinned into cold gray rain. Victor waited inside a hangar, lit by harsh industrial lamps. A private jet stood behind him. His hostages knelt on the concrete floor, wrists tied, faces pale. Elena entered alone. At least that was what Victor saw. She wore black now, not Sophia's borrowed sweater, but a fitted coat over a vest, her hair pulled back, her face clean of blood for the first time since the ER. The fake locket rested at her throat. The fake ring sat on her finger. Her hands were empty. Her fear was not. It walked with her, but it no longer led. Victor smiled when he saw her. There she is. The little nurse pretending to be a queen. Elena stopped 10 feet from him. No, she said. A nurse would have called this a psychiatric emergency. Victor's smile thinned. Dr. Reeves lifted his bruised face. Elena, run! She looked at him. Hi, Dr. Reeves. You shouldn't be here. I get that a lot. Mrs. Alvarez was crying silently. But when Elena's eyes met hers, the old woman shook her head with fierce love. Don't. Elena almost broke. Almost. Victor stepped closer. You brought the keys? Elena removed the locket and ring. He looked at them like a starving man. Put them on the floor. No. His eyes sharpened. Elena lifted her chin. You want them. Release one hostage. Victor laughed. You are in no position to negotiate. Actually, I am the only position left. Her voice stayed even. Without me, those keys are useless. Without the archive, you're finished. Without hostages, you're just an old man with a gun and bad press. His face darkened. There. The mask cracking. You think the confession changes anything? He hissed. This city eats truth and asks for dessert. Maybe. She took one step closer. But it hates being embarrassed. Something flickered in Victor's eyes. Elena smiled faintly. You're trending. His jaw clenched. The Blondie archive is already live, she said. Every badge you bought, every judge, every account, every murder, including my father's. Victor went still. For the first time, fear touched him. Real fear. No, he whispered. Elena's smile vanished. Yes. Behind Victor, one of his men checked a phone. Then another. Panic moved through them like a current. Outside the hangar, sirens grew louder. Not local police. Federal. Media helicopters thundered above the rain clouds. Victor looked at Elena with pure hatred. You stupid little girl. Elena stepped closer. I was a stupid little girl when you killed my father. Another step. I was a grieving daughter when you killed my mother. Another. I was a terrified nurse when you walked into my ER. She stopped directly in front of him. But I am not any of those things now. Victor lifted his gun. Elena did not flinch, because the shadow behind him moved first. Luca emerged from the darkness beside the private jet, gun in hand, face pale, body held upright by rage and pain, and whatever stubborn miracle lived in his bones. You should have run, Luca said. Victor spun. At the same time, Marco's men dropped from the catwalks. Nico cut the power to the east doors. Sophia entered from the side with federal agents behind her. The hangar exploded into movement. But no one fired. Not yet. Too many cameras. Too many witnesses. Too many truths already released. Victor realized it at the same moment Elena did. His empire had always depended on darkness. Elena had dragged him into light. He grabbed her. Fast. A knife appeared at her throat. Luca's entire body went still. Every gun in the hangar aimed at Victor. Mrs. Alvarez cried out. Victor pressed the blade close enough for Elena to feel the edge. Drop your weapons, he snarled. No one moved. His breath was hot against Elena's ear. You think you won? I can still take you with me. Elena looked at Luca. His eyes were black with terror and violence. For once he could not move. Because Victor had finally found the one weapon that could stop him. Here. Elena, Luca said softly. She heard everything in that one word. Don't move. Don't be brave. Don't leave me. Victor laughed against her hair. There it is. The great Luca Moretti brought to his knees by a nurse. Elena's eyes stayed on Luca. Then she said, I'm not just a nurse. Victor's grip tightened. Elena slammed her heel down on his injured foot, drove her elbow back into his bandaged shoulder, and dropped her weight the way hospital security had taught staff to escape holds years ago. The knife sliced her skin, shallow and hot. But she was free. Luca fired once. Not at Victor's head. At his hand. The knife flew across the concrete. Marco's men swarmed. Victor hit the floor under 6 bodies, screaming as they pinned him down. Elena stood there breathing hard, one hand pressed to the cut on her throat. Luca crossed the hangar toward her. Every step cost him. She could see it. Everyone could. But no one dared stop him. He reached her and lifted his shaking hand to her neck, eyes fixed on the thin line of blood. I'm okay, she said. His jaw tightened. You're bleeding. So are you. His eyes met hers. For a second, the world around them vanished. Victor was dragged past in handcuffs, face twisted with rage. You think this ends? He spat. You think a Blondie and a Moretti can stand together without drowning the city in blood? Elena turned. Luca's hand remained at her back. This time, she did not move away. She looked at Victor not with fear, not with hatred, but with the calm certainty of a woman who had survived every version of his power. No, she said. I think it begins. His expression faltered. Elena stepped closer. You took my parents. You burned my home. You used people I loved as bait because you thought love made me weak. She looked at Mrs. Alvarez, who was being untied by Sophia. Then at Dr. Reeves. Then at Luca. You were wrong. Federal agents pulled Victor away, still shouting, still threatening, but the cameras caught all of it. The great shadow of the city reduced to a bleeding, furious man in handcuffs. Luca leaned slightly into Elena. Only she noticed. She turned to him at once. You're about to collapse. I was waiting for privacy. There are news helicopters. I said waiting. She slipped under his arm before pride could stop him. This time, he let her. Mrs. Alvarez ran to Elena as fast as her old knees allowed. Elena caught her and held on so tightly both of them cried. "You stupid girl," Mrs. Alvarez sobbed. "Brave, stupid girl." Elena laughed through tears. "You brought a kitchen knife to Mafia men. It was a good knife. I owe you a new one." "Yes, you do." Dr. Reeves approached slowly, bruised but alive. "Elena," he said, voice thick, "I'm sorry." She shook her head. "No, I am." "For what?" She looked around at the destroyed hangar, the agents, the bodies, the cameras, the empire collapsing in real time. "For being a difficult patient." He stared at her. Then, despite everything, he laughed. The sound broke something open. Not grief. Relief. Outside, dawn finally pushed through the clouds. By noon, Victor's confession and the Belandi archive had reached every major network. By evening, arrests began. Police commanders, judges, city officials, businessmen, men who had spent decades believing their names were too powerful to say aloud, watched them scroll across screens beneath the word corruption. Mercy General's staff were cleared. Elena's name was cleared. Luca's name was not. His crimes were too real for that. But the city learned something else too. That the monster they feared had helped expose the monsters they trusted. For 3 days, Elena did not sleep more than an hour at a time. She moved between safe houses, hospitals, interviews with federal investigators, and Luca's recovery room. Mrs. Alvarez refused to stay anywhere without Elena nearby. Sofia became the kind of woman who could silence federal agents with one raised eyebrow. Nico vanished twice, and returned each time with more evidence, more secrets, and an irritating smile Elena was beginning to accept as genetic. And Luca survived. Angrily, dramatically, badly. He hated bed rest so much, the nurses at the private clinic threatened to assign Elena full authority over his sedation. Elena considered it. Often. On the 4th night, she found him standing by the window. Of course. His bandages were hidden beneath a black shirt. His face was still pale. One hand gripped the windowsill too tightly. "You are the worst patient I have ever had," she said from the doorway. He did not turn. "That can't be true." "It is. And I once treated a man who tried to remove his own 4 with his teeth." Luca's mouth curved faintly. Elena walked in and closed the door behind her. The room was quiet, high above the city. Chicago stretched beneath them, glittering and bruised. News helicopters still circled in the distance. Sirens still cried through the streets. The empire was not gone, but it was bleeding. For once, not on Elena's hands. She stood beside Luca. Neither spoke for a while. Then he said, "The Moretti Council met today." Elena looked at him. "And?" "They expected me to bury the archive, make deals, protect certain names, trade others." "What did you do?" "I dissolved them." She stared at him. Luca looked out at the city. "My father built the table. I burned it." Elena's chest tightened. "That dangerous?" "Yes." "You'll lose power." "Yes." "Enemies will come." They already were. She looked at him. He turned then. His eyes were tired, shadowed, but clear. "I am keeping the legitimate businesses, cutting the rest loose. Anyone who wants the old ways can leave. And if they don't," his gaze darkened, "they will wish they had." Elena should have been disturbed. Maybe she was. But she also understood that men like Luca did not become gentle overnight. Maybe they never became gentle at all. Maybe the question was whether they could aim their violence away from the innocent. "Why?" she asked. He knew what she meant. Because of her? Because of Marianne? Because of guilt? Because the world was watching? Luca stepped closer slowly, giving her every chance to move away. She didn't. "Because I am tired," he said. The honesty surprised her. Tired of what? Blood pretending to be legacy. Fear pretending to be respect. Men like Victor believing they are inevitable. His eyes searched hers. "And because your mother was right." Elena's throat tightened. "About what?" "Mercy is harder." She looked away before he could see how much that hurt. On the table beside the window lay the shoebox. What remained of her mother's things? A few photographs. The scarf. The letters. The life fire had not stolen. Elena touched the box lightly. "I don't know who I am now," she admitted. Luca was silent. Good. He did not rush to answer for her. So she continued. "I was Elena Carter, nurse, nobody. Or I thought I was nobody. Then I was Belandi, a key, a target, A fugitive. A headline. She looked at him. What am I tomorrow? Luca's voice was low. Whatever you choose. Elena smiled sadly. You make that sound easy. It isn't. No. But it is yours. The words settled between them. Yours. Not mine. Elena felt the difference. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped closer and reached for the bandage beneath his shirt. Luca caught her wrist gently. Elena, I'm checking your wound. I know. Then let go. His thumb brushed her pulse. This time, there was no command in it. Only memory. Ask me, she said. His eyes lifted to hers. He understood. Of course he did. Slowly, he released her wrist. Elena slid her hand beneath the edge of his shirt and checked the bandage. Warm skin, steady breathing, no fresh bleeding. You'll live, she said. His mouth curved. Disappointed? Undecided. She started to pull away. He spoke before she could. I'm sorry. Elena Stille. The words were simple. No power behind them. No performance. Just him. I am sorry for lying to you. For choosing your hospital without telling you why. For thinking protection gave me the right to decide for you. His jaw tightened. For every moment tonight that made you feel owned. Elena's eyes burned. She looked down. I hated when you called me that. I know. No, you don't. She looked back up. Part of me hated it because it scared me. Part of me hated it because everyone had taken so much from me already. His face tightened. And part of me hated it because I wanted to know what it would feel like if you meant it differently. Luca went utterly still. The city lights flickered behind him. Elena's voice lowered. I am not yours, Luca. I know, but I am here. His eyes darkened with something too intense to name. Elena. This time her name was not a warning. Not an order. A question. She answered by touching his face. He closed his eyes for 1 second like the contact wounded him more deeply than any bullet. Then he leaned down and kissed her. Not violently. Not possessively. Not like the Mafia boss who had claimed her in a blood-soaked ER. This kiss was careful. Almost reverent. A man holding the one thing he was terrified to damage. Elena kissed him back. Not because she had forgiven everything. Not because the danger was over. Not because love made sense after one night of blood and fire. But because something between them had survived the worst parts of both their worlds and still reached for warmth. When they parted, Luca rested his forehead against hers. I meant it differently, he whispered. Elena closed her eyes. Outside, the city kept burning down its old gods. Inside, Elena Carter stood with the man who had once called her mine, and felt for the first time that maybe the word did not have to be a cage. Maybe it could be a vow, but only if she chose it. And tomorrow, for the first time in her life, she would choose. Morning arrived soft over Chicago, as if the city had not spent the night tearing its own shadows open. For the first time in days, it was not raining. Sunlight slid through the high windows of the private recovery room and touched the edge of Luca's bed, the shoebox on the table, the folded blue scarf beside it, and Elena Carter sleeping in the chair with her hands still wrapped around his. Luca woke before she did. He did not move. Not because of the pain, though there was plenty of it. His chest burned with every breath. His ribs ached. His body felt stitched together by thread, stubbornness, and Elena's threats. But he stayed still because Elena was finally resting. Her head leaned awkwardly against the chair. Her hair had slipped loose from its tie. There was a tiny bandage at her throat where Victor's knife had kissed her skin, and Luca could not look at it without feeling something violent stir behind his ribs. She had survived. That truth still felt impossible. She had walked into his world with blood on her scrubs and fear in her eyes, and somehow she had come out standing taller than the men who had tried to own her. Not untouched. No came out of darkness untouched, but unbroken. Luca looked at their joined hands. Hers was smaller than his, warm, steady, strong in ways his world had never known how to measure. He had called her mine in an emergency room because pain and blood loss had stripped him down to instinct. Now, in the quiet after war, he understood the truth. Elena Carter was not something to possess. She was someone to be worthy of. Her fingers shifted against his. Her eyes opened slowly. For a second, she looked disoriented. Then her gaze found him, and relief crossed her face before she could hide it. You're awake, she whispered. So are you. I was monitoring you. You were drooling. Her eyes narrowed. I was absolutely not. Luca's mouth curved faintly. A little. You were shot 3 times in one night. Don't get arrogant just because you survived. I was arrogant before I survived. That's true. The small smile that touched her face nearly ruined him. Outside the room, the city was changing. News anchors spoke in urgent voices. Federal agents moved through police departments with warrants in their hands. Judges resigned. Men who had once whispered Victor's name with fear now denied ever knowing him. Victor Drazen had been taken into federal custody before sunrise. This time, no local police touched him. This time, every camera watched. This time, the monster had nowhere dark enough to hide. But inside the recovery room, none of that mattered for a moment. Only breathing. Only sunlight. Only Elena's thumb moving softly over Luca's knuckles, like she was checking that he was real. A knock came at the door. Mrs. Alvarez entered without waiting for permission. She carried a paper bag in one hand and wore the expression of a woman who had fought mafia men, survived kidnapping, and still had opinions about hospital food. "Elena," she said, "you look terrible." Elena laughed, standing carefully. "Good morning to you too." Mrs. Alvarez pulled her into a fierce hug. Luca watched Elena's eyes close as she held the old woman back. Family, he thought. Not blood. Something better. Mrs. Alvarez turned to Luca next. He tried to sit straighter. She pointed a finger at him. "You." Luca paused. Elena pressed her lips together, trying not to smile. Mrs. Alvarez stepped closer. "You bring trouble." "Yes, ma'am. You bleed on everything." "Yes, ma'am. You make her cry." Luca's expression sobered. "Yes." Mrs. Alvarez studied him for a long second. Then she took a container from the paper bag and set it beside his bed. "Soup," she said. "You are too skinny for a mafia boss." Elena lost the fight and laughed. Luca looked at the container, then back at Mrs. Alvarez. "Thank you." Her face softened just slightly. "Don't thank me. Get better. Someone has to pay for my kitchen knife." By afternoon, Sophia arrived with a new folder. Not one full of secrets this time. Paperwork. Properties recovered from Belandi accounts. Funds redirected into victim restitution. Legal protections for witnesses. A foundation fund in Marianne Carter's real name, created for nurses, single mothers, and families destroyed by organized crime. Elena read the documents in silence. Luca watched her carefully. "You don't have to sign anything today," Sophia said. Elena touched her mother's name on the page. Mariana Belandi Carter. All of her. "Finally. I want Mercy General rebuilt," Elena said. Sophia nodded. "It will be. And the staff protected. Already arranged. And Mrs. Alvarez gets a new apartment." Mrs. Alvarez, sitting in the corner eating crackers from her purse, lifted her chin. "With a good lock." Elena smiled. "With a very good lock." Luca said quietly, "Done." Elena looked at him. There had been a time when that single word would have sounded like control. Now, it sounded like service. That difference mattered. A week later, Elena returned to Mercy General. The ER still carried scars. Bullet holes patched but not painted. Glass replaced. Floors scrubbed clean. The staff moved differently now, with the haunted tenderness of people who had survived the same nightmare. When Elena walked in, the entire emergency room stopped. For one terrible second, the silence took her back. Rain. Blood. Black suits. Luca's hand around her wrist. "Mine." Then Dr. Reeves stepped forward. His bruises had faded yellow at the edges. His eyes were tired, kind, and full of things neither of them could say. "Welcome back, Carter." Elena swallowed hard. Then the nurses began clapping. Not loudly at first. Then louder. Someone cried. Someone laughed. Elena stood in the middle of the ER with tears in her eyes and realized she had not lost everything after all. Some places could burn and still be rebuilt. Some names could be stolen and still be reclaimed. Some hearts could be dragged through darkness and still know how to beat. That evening, she found Luca waiting outside the hospital. Not in a convoy. Not surrounded by armed men. Just one black car parked beneath the fading gold light, Marco at the wheel pretending not to watch too closely. Luca stood beside the passenger door in a black coat, pale but upright, one hand tucked carefully near his healing ribs. Elena walked toward him slowly. "You're supposed to be resting." "I am resting. You're standing outside an ER. I find hospitals calming." "That is a lie." "Yes." She stopped in front of him. For a moment neither moved. Then Luca reached into his coat and took out the silver locket. Her mother's locket. Repaired. Cleaned. The chip removed and secured elsewhere. Inside, where the hidden device had been, now sat a tiny photograph. Marianne Carter, smiling. Beside it, Daniel Carter holding newborn Elena. Elena's breath caught. "How did you—" "Sophia found it in one of the protected files," Luca said. "Your mother had kept a copy hidden with the archive." Elena took the locket with trembling fingers. For the first time, when she looked at it, it did not feel like a weapon. It felt like love. Her mother, her father, both real, both hers. Tears blurred her vision. Luca did not touch her until she stepped closer. Then his arms came around her carefully, as if even now he feared holding too tightly. Elena rested alive. Still alive. "I don't know what happens next," she whispered. Luca's voice rumbled low above her. "Neither do I. That's not very reassuring. I could lie." She pulled back and looked up at him. His eyes softened. "I won't." That was the promise she believed. Not forever. Not safety. Not a life without darkness. Just truth. Elena touched his jaw. "I'm not ready to be yours." Luca held her Gaza. "I know, but I might be ready to let you take me to dinner." A slow smile touched his mouth. "Dinner?" "Yes. Normal people do that before gunfire, abductions, secret archives, and emotional trauma. I'm unfamiliar with the order. I'll teach you." His smile deepened, then faded into something quieter. "And after dinner?" Elena looked back at Mercy General, glowing behind her in the evening light. Then at the locket in her hand. Then at Luca. "After dinner we keep choosing." Luca's eyes held hers like a vow. One day at a time, one day at a time. He opened the car door for her. Elena paused before getting in. The city around them was bruised, rebuilding, dangerous, alive. Somewhere, men were still hiding. Somewhere, power was shifting. Somewhere, the ghosts of Marianne and Daniel Carter were finally being heard. Elena looked at Luca one last time. The Mafia boss who had entered her ER covered in blood. The monster who had lied. The boy her mother had saved. The man who had learned, painfully, that love was not possession. He waited for her choice. So, Elena chose. She climbed into the car. Luca got in beside her. As they drove away from Mercy General, the city lights flickered across the window, like stars trying to survive the dark. Elena opened the locket and looked at her parents' faces. For the first time in 12 years, the grief did not feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. And when Luca's hand rested beside hers on the seat, he did not take. He waited. Elena looked at him, smiled softly, and placed her hand in his. Not because she belonged to him, because she wanted to be there. The car disappeared into the warm Chicago night, carrying a nurse, a wounded king, and a story that had begun in blood but would not end there.